Hi, welcome back guys. This is your sensei, back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Naruto Fell for Erza. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Erza hated to be powerless. She felt frustrated and angry as she glared at the mages in front of her. A dark guild, she knew. They stood in the town square, where the mages held the townspeople as hostages. She knew that if she resisted, the civilians would pay the price. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw a young girl huddle closer to her mother, eyes wide in fear. How did this happen? Erza didn't know. The events of this morning had moved too fast for her to remember. She could think about that later. Right now she had bigger problems. There were 20 of them in total. 10 mages kept the hostages in check while the others surrounded Erza. All of them were from Eisenwald, Erza knew. She also knew that they wouldn't hesitate to wipe out this town's population. She heard laughter among the mages. Well, looky what we have here, a voice said. Erza turned to the speaker. He was the mage on her immediate right. His hair ran long and dark over his shoulders. He wore a button-up shirt and a long overcoat. He bore a nasty grin on his face. The famous Titania, Erza Scarlet. The other mages chuckled. Erza clenched her fists. If you leave now, I promise I won't harm you. The mages barked with laughter. The previous speaker wiped a tear from his eye after the laughter had subsided. He sighed. That was a good one. I won't harm you, he said, mimicking Erza's tone. But here's the thing, we have a job to do. The mage said, turning serious. Lord Erger wants to test Lullaby on this town. He's on his way. Erza paled. Lullaby was one of the creations of Zeref, the most evil and powerful of all dark mages. But what worried her more was that it was in the possession of a dark guild. Her mind quickly started to formulate a strategy. If she could distract them long enough, she might be able to requip into something that might tip the scales. Keep them talking, she thought. Lullaby? She asked, pretending to be ignorant. She needed to know why and how they have acquired it. The mage grinned evilly. You don't know. It's a powerful artifact created by Zeref himself. With that much power, Eisenwald would be unstoppable. He turned to Erza and gave her a sympathetic look. Sadly, none of you will live to see our glorious ascent to be the most powerful guild in Fjord. Now it was Erza who gave a small laugh. The mage glared at her. Is there something funny about what I said? Actually, there is, Erza said. She turned to him and summoned a sword. She pointed it at him. The number 1 guild in Fjord is Fairytale. The mages of Eisenwald looked to one another uneasily. Was she planning to fight? They knew that even all 20 of them were no match for her. Not so fast, Titania. The mage earlier held up his hand. Earth magic, flat plane. The ground shook violently as a gigantic part of the town was ripped from the ground. A perfect square of earth the size of a house levitated above the townspeople. Now, if you so much as lift a finger, then these people get flattened. Erza knew they weren't bluffing. Any mage from a dark guild would not hesitate to harm innocent people, whether it was for their mission or simply for the sheer enjoyment. Erza hated it, but she let her sword disappear. She let her arms fall to her sides. I surrender, just don't hurt them. The mage grinned. Oh, Erza, we won't hurt them. His grin turned into an insane smile. We'll do so much more than that. You coward, Erza shouted. He started to laugh, but then one of the townspeople stood up. Why do you need to hurt these people just for power? They all turned to the new speaker. He was tall with nicely tanned skin, marks on his cheeks that resembled 3 whisker marks on each, and bright yellow hair that was spiky and stuck up in all directions like the spines of a sea urchin. He had on a slim, form-fitting orange tracksuit outfit with black on the upper shoulders area and the color extending from around the neck and shoulders, down the front and sleeves, as well as around the waist. A white swirl on the left side, a red swirl crest on the back, orange pants. His feet were covered by black sandals that covered the instep and ankles, yet left his toes and heels exposed, and the pouches at his waist and thigh were black. So was the headband he had on around his forehead with a metal plate and swirled arrow symbol of some sort. What really caught Erza's attention were his eyes. They were light blue and complemented his handsome face quite nicely. He stood glaring at the mages of Eisenwald. Who are you supposed to be? The Earth Mage questioned. The youth thought for a moment as if he wasn't sure himself. Naruto, he finally said. Naruto Uzumaki. Well, Naruto, as I said before, we don't want just power, we want to be the most powerful. Naruto cast his eyes down. This is why there is always conflict, where everyone loses. He muttered. Naruto looked up to the Earth Mage, a new look in his eyes. I'll repeat what Erza said. He spoke to everyone in general. Leave now and no one gets hurt. The mages just laughed again. You people really don't get it, the Earth Mage said. What happened next was so fast that if Erza had blinked, she would have missed it. Naruto came up to the Earth Mage with incredible speed and slammed his fist into the mage's gut. He followed it with an uppercut that sent the mage flying. The mage didn't even have time to cry out in alarm. He landed next to his comrades. Blood ran down the corner of his mouth. That's it. The injured mage snarled, stretched his hand out. Earth magic, release. No, Erza shouted as the rock began to descend. The townspeople screamed. Naruto appeared in the middle of the hostages and made a hand sign with 2 fingers from each hand and formed a cross. Multiple shadow clone jutsu. A massive puff of smoke appeared as the rock landed. When the smoke cleared, Erza was shocked to see over 50 copies of Naruto holding their hands above their heads, struggling under the weight of the rock. Impossible, the Earth Mage exclaimed. Who are you? All the Narutos just grinned. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. By that time, all of the townspeople had escaped. Naruto looked at Erza while still holding the massive rock. All yours. Erza nodded and turned to Isenwald, who was trembling with fear. Requip. Erza was wrapped in golden light, and when it faded she was in her fairy armor holding 2 swords. It was payback time, she knew, and the mages knew it as well. The Earth Mage turned to his guild members. Well, attack, he ordered, but even his voice showed hesitation. The guild members hesitated a moment and charged. But they never reached Erza. She summoned her sword's heaven's pinwheel. The blades circled each other and then launched themselves at the mages. Isenwald never stood a chance. They each gave their own shout of pain, then collapsed. The townspeople cheered. Erza noticed a retreating figure running into the woods. This isn't over yet, Titania. The Earth Mage called over his shoulder, and within moments he was gone. Erza equipped back into her usual armor. She was deciding whether or not to go after the mage when a voice called out, can someone give me a hand here? This rock is pretty heavy. She completely forgot about Naruto, who was still under the weight of a massive rock. She summoned her black wing armor that gave her additional attack power and sliced the stone in half. The clones dispersed and the 2 halves of rock fell on either sides of the original Naruto. Naruto bent over, placed his hands on his knees, and started to catch his breath. Erza approached him and he looked up to face her. Thank you for the assist, back there, Erza said. If you hadn't intervened, who knows what might have happened. He grinned up at her. Anything for a pretty lady, he said, slightly out of breath. The small compliment was enough to make Erza blush. This was met with another grin from the blonde. Naruto straightened and held out his hand. Naruto, by the way. Erza shook his hand. Erza Scarlet, she replied. Nice to meet you, Erza-chan. Naruto smiled. He liked to smile a lot, Erza thought. Erza decided to stay in town for the rest of the day. She insisted on helping the people fix their town, but they refused, insisting that she had done more than enough. After the battle, the mayor gave her an additional 10,000 jewel. I cannot accept this, she tried to explain. The mayor waved his hand dismissively. We have more than enough money from our harvests. Now that you've defeated the monster that has been terrorizing our fields, we'll make twice as much. Take it as a token of goodwill. That was as far as the discussion went. As she was leaving the mayor's office, something stopped her. One last question, where does Naruto live? Erza inquired. The mayor frowned. The man who helped you? Erza nodded. The mayor answered, to be honest, I've never seen him before today. What? You mean he's not from here? Erza said. After the introductions, he politely excused himself, saying he had something to do. Erza hadn't seen him since. The mayor nodded. He came into town this morning, wandering the market square. He seemed lost for some reason. Erza pondered at that for a moment, when the mayor spoke again. Why do you ask? I just wanted to thank him again for earlier. Well, if you find him, give him my thanks as well. He saved my wife and as well as everyone else. I will, Erza promised. By late afternoon, Erza had left the town and found herself on the road again. It was a rural place, so there were no means of transportation until she reached the next town. She lugged her heavy cart full of her stuff in the decorated monster horn. She kept walking until she heard someone calling her name. Erza-chan. She turned and was surprised to see that Naruto was running toward her and stopped next to her. He held a rucksack over his shoulder and was panting slightly. Mayor said you left. Naruto said. Mind if I tag along? I wouldn't mind some company. Erza said thoughtfully. Where are you headed? She asked as they started walking. Wherever you are, since I'm just drifting from place to place, he replied. Erza stared. Naruto put his hands behind his head and continued walking. He noticed Erza's huge luggage and made a face. Do you really need all of this stuff? Yes. What for? Just because. Because of what? From that point on, Erza knew it was going to be a long journey home. That night, they decided to camp in the forest. It was still another day's journey to the next town where they could catch a train back to Magnolia. Naruto sat by the fire contentedly feeling the warmth it gave. Erza sat across from him, double-checking the map she carried with her to make sure they were on the right track. They had just finished eating their dinner, which consisted of some grilled fish that Naruto had caught by a small stream earlier and some delicacies Erza bought before leaving town. Erza finally put the map down and broke the silence. If my estimations are correct, we should be back home by early morning the day after tomorrow. She stretched into a more comfortable position and continued eating the other half of her strawberry cake. One of her very favorites, Naruto noticed. He continued to stare at the tongues of flame that provided them heat. One word kept echoing through his head, home. Before the confrontation with the mages, Naruto had woken that morning in a small clearing in the forest near the town. But that wasn't the disturbing part. Naruto had no idea how he ended up there, and more importantly, had no memories of before waking up. He wandered through the town, asking random people where he was and how did he get there. The only thing he had on him was a forehead protector with a strange insignia on it. A small pouch filled with scrolls and some shuriken, and a kunai was hidden in his right sleeve. Naruto felt helpless, confused, and alone. That's when the mages showed up. Naruto still couldn't get over the fact that the girl sitting across from him took out 20 mages without even trying. He was shaken out of his thoughts when Erza gave a wide yawn and laid down to look at the stars. Naruto found himself staring at the girl. She was definitely beautiful, no doubt about that. Her long red hair spread across the ground as she looked towards the sky. Her brown eyes were fierce, but Naruto also saw kindness in them. He questioned her fashion choice, though, armor that covered her upper body and a blue skirt. An odd choice of clothing, but the woman was beautiful nonetheless. Only Erza could make an upper half of armor and skirt look attractive. Erza-chan, can I ask you something? Naruto inquired. She turned to look at him. What's fairy tale like? She smiled. Well, for a start, it's a family. Unlike the other mage guilds, we treat each other as family. Second, it's a place that you can call home, where you feel safe and you can be yourself. She began to recount her past experiences with the guild. There was the time when a boy named Natsu thought he found a real dragon egg, but turned out to be a flying cat when it hatched. The time when she taught Natsu how to read, her constant rivalry with a girl called Murajane, and a bunch of other crazy adventures. Naruto sighed. That sounds nice. Erza sat up and looked at him. Do you remember what your home was like? Naruto frowned and shook his head. I can't for some reason. You don't remember anything? Erza asked. Naruto shook his head again. No matter how hard he tried to remember, the memory slipped away. You ever forget something that it's on the tip of your tongue but you still forget? It's just like that, but with my whole life, Naruto said. Erza bit her lip in thought. Then she snapped her fingers as if she had an idea. I know. Maybe Master Makarov can help you. Who's that? Naruto asked. He's the guild master of Fairy Tail. He is very powerful and wise. Maybe he can solve your memory problem. Naruto pondered that and shrugged. It's worth a shot, at least. If it doesn't work, then I'm no worse off than I already am, and it means I get to spend more time with you. Then it's settled, Erza said. Even in the firelight, Naruto could see a small blush on her cheeks. They sat in silence for a while when Erza spoke again. I just hope whatever Aizenwald is planning isn't too dangerous. Naruto remembered the Earth Mage raving about Lullaby and someone named Erger. He may not have liked it, but there were always men who wanted to be superior to others, men who craved power and would do anything to achieve it. He had a feeling the worst was yet to come and they weren't finished with Aizenwald yet. What is Lullaby exactly? I'm not sure myself, but it is a dark and evil magic. In the wrong hands, who knows what it could do? Erza explained. Nothing good, Naruto guessed. Erza nodded. Well, if you're thinking of another crack at them, then I want in, Naruto claimed. He slammed his fist into his palm. I've got a score to settle with them for ruining my day. Erza couldn't help but smile at his antics. You remind me of Natsu, always charging into things without thinking. Naruto pondered at this. Maybe he'd get to meet this person sometime, then. She repositioned herself to lay on her side. We should get some sleep. Good night, Erza-chan, Naruto said as he laid his head against a log and closed his eyes. Within a few minutes, sleep overcame him. He stood in a large clearing, surrounded by trees. Behind him was a small lake. He felt younger. Beside him, 2 other kids were with him, a raven-haired boy with an arrogant look and a cute pink-haired girl. Standing in front of them was an older man. He wore some kind of flak jacket and a mask that covered most of his face. His silver-white hair shot upward as if it defied gravity. They all wore the similar forehead protectors. The man held out 2 silver bells. I have 2 silver bells in my hand. Your task today is simple. Take these bells from me before noon or you won't get lunch. In which case, if all 3 of you fail, you will be tied to these posts. He gestured to 3 wooden posts to their right, in which case all of you watch as I eat my lunch. The 3 kids felt their stomachs growling. If you fail to get a bell, then I will send you back to the academy for some more training. He continued. You can use any method you want to get a bell. But sensei, there are only 2 bells. The girl protested. The man only grinned as the meaning sunk in. That's right, one of you will be going back to the academy no matter what. That's not fair, Naruto exclaimed loudly. The man pressed a timer on the clock and set it for noon. Naruto felt impatient. I don't have time for this, let's go. He drew a kunai and was ready to charge but was stopped when their sensei appeared behind him and held his wrist, pointing the weapon he was holding directly behind his head. The 3 kids didn't even get the chance to react. He was so fast. Now, don't get impatient, their sensei said. I didn't say start yet. The 3 young trainees tensed. Ready, start. The following morning, they decided to head out early. They reached the next town just as the sun was rising and bought 2 train tickets. The train gave a loud whistle signaling its departure before pulling out of the station. Naruto stared at the rolling landscape as the train sped by. Erza sat opposite to him, doing the same. You know, Naruto, I've been thinking, Erza said, pulling Naruto's attention away from the window. Maybe you shouldn't come with me to help deal with Aizenwald. What made you say that? Naruto asked. Well, seeing as you're not a part of any guild, I don't know how the council will reflect on this, Erza admitted. Naruto gave her a confident grin. Then I'll just have to keep from getting noticed by the council then, huh? How hard could that be? Naruto stared up at the building in front of him. It wasn't the most impressive structure in Magnolia. Sure, it was probably taller than the rest of the houses, maybe 3 stories tall. A banner hung from the balcony above. What it said, the whiskered boy had no real clue since the language, while spoken the same, was written differently. But the symbol depicted what Naruto guessed was a fairy with a tail. Fairy, tail, huh, funny. It's the greatest mystery of all. Erza spoke as if reading his mind. We don't even know if fairies have tails, but that's all part of the mystery. I see. Naruto could hear a ruckus inside. He heard shouts and cheers. He also thought he heard a chair crashing into a wall or something. The whole place sounded like it was getting demolished from the inside. Are they all right in there? Naruto asked worriedly. Erza, on the other hand, didn't even flinch as another object crashed inside the guild hall as if this were a natural occurrence. It's fine, compared to some other days, they're quite tame today, Erza stated. Naruto hoped she was kidding. Erza entered the front door with her gigantic monster horn, which she insisted on bringing along, and Naruto followed. The inside of the building resembled a very large tavern. Long tables set in rows left a space in the middle from the front door straight to the bar. Mages sat in groups talking, joking, trading stories, eating and drinking. The place gave off a comfortable atmosphere, or maybe it was just the people making it so. The mages all fell silent as soon as Erza entered the room. Naruto could feel the sudden change in the room as Erza set down her huge monster horn, like they were expecting a bomb to go off. What's with the giant horn, Erza? One of the mages broke the silence. I defeated a monster and the locals were so thankful they decorated it and gave it as a gift to me. Why do you have a problem with it? She rounded on the mage. The mage squirmed at the glare he received. And no, not at all. She then proceeded to chastise different mages at once. Everybody else just nodded hastily and did as she said. Naruto heard a lot of yes, Erza. Or maybe it was like yes, Erza, please don't hurt me. She continued to call out different mages when she asked, where are Natsu and Gray? The female mage turned her attention to two boys who were both wearing fake smiles and had their arms around each other's shoulders like they were best buds. Naruto had to suppress a gasp. The two teenagers reminded him of the other two kids in his dream. Although the pink hair was now male and the other boy didn't seem as indifferent as the raven-haired boy. But still the sudden appearance was unnerving. The black-haired boy spoke first. Oh, hey Erza, we're just doing what best friends do, I guess. He was sweating nervously. The other boy wasn't any better. In fact, he looked about ready to piss himself. Erza relented to a smile. It's nice to see you two getting along, although it is only natural for even the best of friends to lock horns every once in a while. The two boys laughed nervously. Then the pink-haired boy finally took notice of Naruto. Hey, Erza, who's the guy you brought along with you? He asked bluntly. Everyone turned to look at Naruto, finally acknowledging his presence. Naruto chuckled. The guy has a name you know. Oh, forgive me. Where are my manners? Erza apologized. Everyone, this is Naruto Uzumaki. Some of the mages craned their necks to see him. He turned to look at each of them and raised a hand. Yo, before long, people from all over around to say hello. What's with those weird clothes? Not used to the attention, Naruto was starting to get a little overwhelmed. Erza was a bit annoyed that the guild was harassing the new guy on his first day at the guild, especially since he was not even an official member yet. What kind of magic do you use, Naruto? A man smoking a pipe asked. Actually, I'm just Erza's luggage carrier. He lied. Now was not the best time to be revealing personal information, not that he can give much anyway. He needed to wait and meet this Makarov person first. Thankfully, Erza understood and went along with it. Yes, it is quite troublesome to carry around heavy baggage, especially mine. The other mages just shrugged it off, kind of disappointed. Which reminds me, Erza said. A pretty white-haired woman spoke up. Sorry, the master's at a conference today. Don't worry, I'm sure he'll be back soon. Naruto sighed. Just my luck. He thought. I see. This brings me to my next point. Erza moved on. Natsu, Gray, I need your help. The other mages started murmuring to themselves. Naruto thought he heard Mira gasp. Erza needs help, a mage said in a hushed voice. This is a first, commented a striking woman in a blue bikini, chugging down insane amounts of alcohol. Straight from a barrel. Naruto gawked at that last part. An entire barrel of alcohol. If she was a mage, then her power had to all go to reinforcing her liver. The two boys released each other from their grasp. They stared at each other in distaste, like they couldn't bear to be standing next to each other, much less be working together. Murajane covered her mouth and her eyes were wide in disbelief. This could be the strongest team Fairy Tail has ever seen, she said. Naruto heard this and turned to the three mages. Erza was definitely powerful, Naruto had seen that firsthand. Natsu didn't look like much, just an average teen wearing an armless coat and a scarf. Same went for Gray, but why was he taking his clothes off like he was some kind of male stripper? Naruto shrugged it off. He wouldn't be surprised if all the mages here were just as strong as Erza. That's right, meet us at the train station in an hour, Erza instructed. The boys clearly didn't like it, but they nodded. At the train station, Naruto sat on a bench next to a pretty blonde girl from the guild who introduced herself to be Lucy. Naruto was astounded by the number of attractive women in Fairy Tail. She also came to tag along for the mission with some instructions from Murajane. The others arrived. 15 minutes later, Gray was trying to ignore Natsu's barrage of complaints. A blue, talking cat with wings named Happy was flying after them. As they made their way toward their station, Erza followed behind with her monstrous luggage, which Naruto was going to have to carry. Naruto regretted that cover story. Why do I have to be on the same team as Gray? Natsu complained loudly. I don't like it either, but we're going to have to suck it up. Gray responded evenly. Erza appeared behind them and they gave a small surprised shout. How are we doing? The two resumed their friendship facade. Let's go, good buddy. Aye. Lucy introduced herself to Erza while Natsu and Gray held a glaring contest while Erza's back was turned. The clock indicated that they had 10 minutes to board their train. I hate to interrupt, but we should probably board now, Naruto pointed out. Of course, Erza said. Hey Erza, I'll help you on this mission under one condition. Natsu said. Shut up. Ray whispered harshly to Natsu. Do you have a death wish or something? Natsu ignored him and continued. When we get back, I want to rematch with you. I'm a lot stronger than I was last time. I'll beat you for sure. Naruto could say this about Natsu. The kid had a lot guts, although he didn't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. Erza inspected Natsu's newfound determination. There was a fire in his eyes that burned bright with excitement. Yes, I can tell you've improved. Erza conceded. Very well, I accept your challenge. Natsu pumped his fists. Yeah, I'm fired up. Naruto sighed as the group boarded the train. After they found a seat, he whistle sounded and the train started to pull out. They sat in silence as the train began gaining speed. Natsu was trying to keep his breakfast down. He looked awful. Natsu moaned gradually as the train continued its course and picked up speed. Motion sickness? Naruto asked in concern. Blurg. Natsu choked out. Well ... and no barf bag handy. So just puke in Gray's pants then, Naruto advised. What? Gray snapped, glaring furiously at the suggestion. Naruto shrugged. Hey, you keep ditching your clothes, so if you're not gonna wear them, might as well put them to use if Natsu blows chunks. Either that or stop stripping. Seething, Gray looked ready to strangle the orange-wearing teen ... at least until Erza told him to calm down. Then Gray looked like he was trying not to faint. Erza then briefed them on the mission at hand. She told them that Aizenwald was planning on using Lullaby for something notorious. Natsu had been knocked out by Erza as to minimize his suffering until they reached the next station. They reached the station in 40 minutes, the train gradually getting slower before coming to an abrupt halt and the passengers were beginning to exit. As Naruto followed Gray down the length of the train, he bumped into someone. Whoops, sorry about that. Naruto apologized. No problem, the man said automatically. When he turned, Naruto felt a sharp piercing pain in his head. He stood there clutching his forehead as the man moved away. He had dark spiky hair pulled back. His face was so familiar it made Naruto's head hurt. One thing was for sure, he knew that man, or he at least seemed familiar for some reason. The pain had subsided by the time Naruto decided to follow him. The train had begun to move again. He hoped that Erza and the others had the sense to continue the mission without him, because Naruto didn't want to be a burden. Besides, this was a personal matter. He crouched behind a seat as the person continued along the train. No sense in revealing himself until he was certain, after all. The man continued to move along the aisle until he stopped at the place where Naruto and the others were seated. The man stood in front of a sleeping Natsu, and Naruto slapped himself mentally. How could he have forgotten the pink blowtorch? How could any of them? Well, if it isn't a fairytale wizard. The man sneered. Natsu had awoken at the sound of the voice. Who are you? Natsu asked groggily. Then the man planted his boot in Natsu's face. Naruto clenched his fist to keep himself from shouting out in protest. Instinct told him to be quiet and move when the opportunity presented itself. He hated it, but he kept silent. You fairytale flies have no business here, the man stated. Natsu glared at him from under his boot. He then placed both hands on the man's shoes and shoved him backwards. Miraculously, Natsu stood to face the man. His fist caught fire. Listen, I don't know who you are, Natsu began, but nobody talks trash about fairytale, especially in front of me. Well, Naruto had to give Natsu credit. He knew what he loved and wouldn't stand for it being slandered or desecrated in any way, shape, or form, no matter who it put him up against. The blonde respected that. Natsu took a step forward but stopped hesitantly. The fire from his hand extinguished. He frowned and kept his mouth shut. Naruto could see that he was still dealing with his motion sickness. The man just laughed at him. Was that it? He questioned. Well then let me show you what a real wizard of Aizenwald is like. He stretched out his hand and a magic circle appeared. His shadow began to move towards Natsu. That was when Naruto saw his chance. He leaped from his hiding place and moved with amazing speed, grabbing Natsu and pulling him out of the way before the attack landed. The Shadow Mage was surprised to see that his attack missed. Now Naruto stood between him and Natsu. Naruto, when did you get here? Natsu asked, a bit surprised. Tell you later, Naruto replied. What's this, another one? The mage asked. Well, isn't this my lucky day, 2 for 1? Natsu made a move to charge at the mage, but Naruto held out an arm to stop him. His eyes were telling Natsu to wait. What's your name? Naruto inquired, catching the mage off guard. Kejama, he said, a bit unsure and startled by the question. Naruto tried to search his brain for a sense of familiarity to the name, but nothing struck him. Still, Naruto was sure he knew a shadow user that resembled this guy, so he wasn't through yet. He needed to know more. Do you recognize me? He asked, a bit uncertain. Kejama was surprised by the question. No, I've never seen you before, Kejama answered. Naruto couldn't help but feeling disappointed. He thought he found a connection to his past, but he was wrong. This man was not someone he knew. Then, Naruto remembered something and he grew angry. You're from Aizenwald, Naruto growled. Kejama regained his confident smile. That's right, and now you flies are going to get what you deserve. He raised his hand to attack, but then the train came to a sudden halt, throwing him off balance. Natsu was lucky enough to steady himself on the passenger seat. Naruto, on the other hand, stood firmly in place and didn't budge the slightest when the train halted. Naruto felt a large buildup of his energy concentrated on his feet. He realized that the energy was holding him in place. Kageyama stumbled and something fell from his jacket. It rolled in front of Naruto. It was some kind of dark brown flute with the head of a skull with 3 purple eyes. Kageyama paled as Naruto saw it. Naruto was about to snatch it up when Natsu shouted, "All right, it's payback time." He drew a deep breath. No, wait. Naruto tried to stop him, but it was too late. Natsu released his breath and came out as a roar of fire. Naruto raised both arms to protect himself as the train exploded. Naruto coughed as the smoke and debris started to clear. Kageyama had been burned and bruised, but seemed fine otherwise. Natsu just stood there completely unaffected by the explosion. Naruto was amazed by his display of power. He also felt irritation because if Pinky hadn't gone and blown up the whole train, he could have questioned Kageyama more or at least gotten his hands on the strange-looking flute that it seemed was important to the Aizenwald mage. Who knew where it could be under all this destroyed parts? Lucky shot, Kageyama mumbled. He slowly got back on his feet and the train suddenly lurched forward and began to gradually gain speed. Natsu covered his mouth to prevent himself from vomiting as motion sickness overcame him again. They weren't going to get anywhere like this. Naruto couldn't fight if Natsu was going to get in the way. They needed to fall back. As Kageyama prepared to attack, Naruto reached into his pouch and detonated a smoke bomb. Naruto took advantage of the temporary concealment and moved fast. He grabbed Natsu and ran towards the destroyed part of the train with a huge portion missing. I'm an idiot for this, Naruto thought, and he jumped out of the train, hauling his living furnace of a teammate with him. As the smoke cleared, Kageyama found himself standing alone. He looked left and right but couldn't find his adversaries. He shook his head, thinking that they probably jumped as he inspected the destroyed train. Unbeknownst to him, though, was that the original Naruto had transformed into a suitcase under one of the chairs. Meanwhile, the other Naruto and Natsu crashed into Erza and the others the moment they jumped. Literally, Erza drove some sort of vehicle that ran alongside the train. They stopped as soon as they saw the 2 boys flying toward them. Naruto was thankful for his fast reflexes because he wouldn't have caught the top part of the vehicle and he would have tumbled into the ground. He had a firm hold of Natsu, who was as limp as a rag doll, until they stopped. What happened? Erza demanded as soon as they were gathered around the strange car. Natsu recounted the events that had transpired on the train, how Naruto showed up, and when they jumped out. So they were on the same train as us, Erza said after Natsu finished. Unexpectedly, Erza brought her fist down on his head. You fool, why did you let him get away? That was part of our mission. What? It's the first time I heard about this, Natsu said, rubbing the spot where Erza hit him. She already forgot she knocked him out on the train. Naruto heard Lucy murmur. Erza continued to scold Natsu when Naruto stepped in. He couldn't let Natsu take all the blame. It's my fault he got away. The group turned to look at him. What do you mean? Gray asked. Naruto looked away. I thought I recognized him from my past. The others looked confused while Erza understood. She placed her hand on his shoulder. Did you find anything helpful? Naruto just shook his head. Gray, on the other hand, began to grow suspicious. Hang on, why would you recognize someone from a dark guild, you old friends or something? The very suggestion that he was from a dark guild made Naruto's gut twist in anger and disgust, but a small part of his mind said, what if he's right? He didn't know anything from his past, so it could be possible that he was from a dark guild, but the thought seemed so wrong to Naruto. He would never join those monsters. It went against every fiber and instinct of his existence. It's not like that, Gray, Erza said. She began to explain how she met Naruto on a job and how he has no memory of his past. Understanding dawned on their faces. So you were lying when you said you were just Erza's luggage carrier, Lucy ventured. Naruto smiled sheepishly. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Figured the less you knew the better. Amnesia makes trusting people hard. So you're actually a wizard? Happy asked. Well, I wouldn't say that, but I think I'm pretty darn close. Naruto shrugged. We're wasting time. Erza interrupted. We need to catch up to that train. Naruto grinned mischievously. No need to worry about that. I'm just a clone. The real me is on the train as we speak. Natsu, Lucy, and Gray's mouths dropped. Erza, knowing that he could make clones the first time they met, was not surprised. We don't have a moment to lose, then, Erza said. Everyone climbed back into the vehicle. As Erza strapped on the device that drained her magic to turn into fuel, she noticed Naruto still standing there. Come on, Naruto, we have to catch up to them. He just smiled at her. I'm just a clone, remember. Don't worry, they'll meet you at the next station. The clone said. Erza nodded firmly and drove off at top speed before the duplicate of the whiskered male dispersed in a puff of smoke. Naruto felt a rush of new memories as the clone dispersed. Seemed like Erza and the others received his message. Hopefully, they were on their way. All Naruto had to do was stay put. It wasn't easy though. Being transformed into a suitcase made him feel uncomfortable. Strangely, in ways Naruto couldn't explain, he was still vaguely aware of his surroundings. He could still feel the train moving along the tracks. He could hear the loud engine chugging away. This was one of the most bizarre things he experienced so far, but seemingly familiar, as if he's done it 1,000 times before. After what felt like at least half an hour by what Naruto guessed, the train began to slow down and he heard the faint screech of metal as the train came to a stop. He heard a multitude of voices, then something heavy dropped to the ground and people murmuring frantically. He resisted the urge to transform back into a human, for fear of getting caught. Stay put, he ordered himself. Then he heard a train door open and a pair of feet landing on the ground and multiple footsteps nearing the train. "Ah, Kejama, I trust everything is in order," a sinister voice said. "That's quite a bit of wreckage. You didn't have any problems, did you? Come on, aren't you more interested with what I brought?" Another voice, Naruto recognized it as Kejama, said. "Excellent," the other speaker appraised after a brief pause. Naruto suspected that Kejama showed the man something. He had a bad feeling that it was the flute he saw from earlier. The unknown speaker continued, "With Lullaby in our possession, our plans will come into motion." "Yes, Lord Erza," Kejama agreed. More voices chuckled in agreement. He heard them board the train, and after a few minutes they were on the move again. Naruto was deep in thought. He tried to piece the puzzle together, but there were still too many factors to consider. He started to assess the situation with the information he already knew. First, Erza, who appears to be the leader of Eisenwald, was on this train heading to who knew where. Second, they seemed to be in high spirits after they had met up with Kejama, which meant that everything was going according to their plan. What that plan was, though, Naruto didn't know. Thirdly, why were they taking the train? It seemed like a limited way to travel, as they had to stay on the tracks. That meant they weren't aiming for a stealthy approach. They must have been really confident that their plan would work if they seemed so laid back about it. Their main objective, however, was still a mystery to Naruto. He then remembered the flute he saw earlier and Kejama's reaction when he saw it. It was fear. Fear of being caught. Lullaby. It sounds like one of the songs you sing to a child to get them to fall asleep. The song, a flute ... and lullaby. The truth hit Naruto like a ton of bricks. The flute was Lullaby. He didn't understand the finer details, but he got the idea. If anyone played that flute, those who hear its melody died. Now if he only knew who they were planning to use it on. Finally, Naruto couldn't stand it anymore. He transformed back into himself and crawled out from under the chair. As he stood and stretched his back, he heard a shout and furniture splintering into pieces coming from the train car ahead of him. He walked toward the sounds until he reached the door to the next car. The mages of Eisenwald must have been the ones on the other side. He crouched and carefully opened the door just a fraction so he could see inside. Kejama was on the floor as if he tripped backwards. Towering over him was a man wielding a gigantic scythe. Naruto could see some of the other mages in there as well. "You let them escape," the man holding the scythe roared. "Guy must be Erza," Naruto thought. "Do you have any idea how foolish that was?" Erza ranted. "Those pesky little flies will cause us nothing but trouble. Lord Erza, if they are so weak, then there will be nothing they can do to stop us, right?" Kejama said in a pathetic attempt to save himself from blame. Erza considered that for a moment, then he lowered his scythe to this side. "Fortunately for you, Kejama, we still have time to correct your errors." Erza gave a nasty smile. "We'll have a little surprise waiting for our fairy friends at Ashibana Station." The mages gave matching grins in anticipation. That was all Naruto needed to know for now. He slid the door slowly back to close it. Naruto's heart convulsed in fear as it gave a small click when the door shut. "What was that?" he heard Erza say. Naruto had to act fast. Erza slid the door open and walked into the destroyed train car. He looked around the train, but couldn't find anyone. He could have sworn he heard something suspicious. He carried his scythe over his shoulder and walked up the aisle. There was no one there. He shrugged, but he still couldn't shake the feeling that there was another presence. He walked back into the other train car when he stepped on something, a beat-up old suitcase made of leather. Frowning, he kicked it to the side. He returned to the other train car and shut the door, locking it behind him. Naruto felt his heart hammering in his chest. That was too close. Even when he transformed back into an old suitcase, he was afraid Erza would notice, but he just kicked him to the side. Eventually, Naruto's breathing helped calm him down. Part of him wondered why he was afraid. He bet he could take Erza down right here and right now, but then again, he had backup. The logical part of him was just thankful that he didn't get caught. Naruto felt himself getting drowsy. So far this has been an exhausting day and it wasn't even noon. He considered a brief nap when he decided against it. The rhythmic sound of the train's wheels moving along the tracks was not helping. He felt himself slowly drifting off, maybe one quick nap. He was standing in front of huge gates. 4 other boys stood with him as they were about to head out. One boy looked exactly like Kejama except that his mouth curved mostly downward and his posture was sloppy. He must be thinking how he'd rather be at home resting than being out here to do a mission. Another boy was fat and was munching on some chips. A boy with sharp canines wearing a snow jacket petted a small dog that perched on the hood of his jacket. Another boy had white irises and had long hair. The Kejama lookalike was discussing some kind of formation when a weepy, pink-haired girl approached them. "Naruto, this is a once-in-a-lifetime request," she sobbed. "But please bring back Sasuke, bring him back to me." Naruto felt a huge amount of sadness overcome him. It was obvious that she loved Sasuke. He knew that she had never felt any sort of affection toward him, even though he did. "You really care about him, don't you?" Naruto said sadly. The girl didn't respond. Naruto forced a smile and gave her a thumb up. "I promise I'll bring back Sasuke, no matter what. I swear on my life, Databeo." The girl hugged herself and sobbed even more. "Naruto, thank you." Naruto woke just as the train stopped. He let go of the transformation, but stayed under the chair. The mages of Eisenwald gathered in the station. He heard footsteps coming and then he saw Erza and the others emerge from a hallway on the other side of the room. Naruto counted the number of the Eisenwald Guild members, all in all, 60 strong. He steeled himself for the battle he knew was about to take place. Strangely, he felt excited. Battle jitters, he guessed. Naruto smirked. It was time to make this guild sorry he ever messed with either Fairytale or Naruto Uzumaki. Erza felt exhausted. She regretted not letting Gray drive the magic car for a while so she could have gotten to rest. Now, as she stood in front of the entire Eisenwald guild, she doubted she could handle them all. Thankfully, she had backup. They were gathered in the main station. Well, look at this. A couple of flies have entered the spider's web. A voice taunted from above. There sat a man who was hovering in the air, wielding a giant scythe. He could only be Erza the Reaper. Natsu had gotten over his motion sickness and stood to face the guild. He grinned. Well, looks like we've got a party going on here. He pounded his fist into his palm. Natsu, they're the bad guys, remember? Lucy reminded him nervously. Just like I said, a party, he said, scanning the dark guild. His eyes widened as he recognized the shadow mage from the train. You. Kajama just smiled, ready for round 2. Where's your blonde friend? Erza knew he meant Naruto. The clone from earlier said that he was on the train, but she couldn't catch a glimpse of him. Was it possible they? No, she refused to believe that he'd been caught or worse. She kept her attention on Erza. Erza, we've come to take you into custody, Erza declared with her best authoritative voice. Call of this scheme you intend to do and we will show mercy. Erza just smiled wider before he disappeared and reappeared on top of the station's speakers. He was fast. Wind magic, Erza thought. Not until those who wronged us get what they deserve. He told her, with Lullaby in our possession, we'll be unstoppable. Natsu was getting impatient. Just spit it out already. What do you plan to do with Lullaby? He demanded. Erza chuckled and opened his mouth to respond when a voice answered for him. He plans to broadcast it, most likely mixing the station speakers, and judging from that breeze, this guy has wind abilities so the song plays further. They all turned to the source of the voice and Erza spotted a familiar-looking blonde with blue eyes, whisker marks on both cheeks, a metal-plated headband on his forehead wearing orange and black. He stood on top of the train behind Eisenwald. Erza noticed that his usual cheery demeanor was gone. He had his arms crossed and his eyes as cold and hard as ice as he glared at the Eisenwald mages in front of him. She felt a huge amount of relief. That's why you chose to travel by train, because of the speakers, isn't it? Naruto said. Erza looked slightly annoyed, but managed to keep smirking. I knew I smelled a rat sniffing around, Erza said. He met Naruto's glare with his own. You're the one who's been causing us trouble lately. Among the mages, Erza spotted a familiar face. The one she met when Eisenwald tried to destroy a small town and its population. The Earth Mage smirked. We meet again, Titania. Erza felt anger boiling inside her. This time she would finish off every last one of them. Just then Erza spoke again. I don't have time for this. He turned to his guild members. Take care of these weaklings. Show them true terror. He ordered before he vanished. Erza turned to Natsu and Gray. Follow him. If you work together, not even Erza the Reaper can stand against you. The two boys started to object when she gave them a death glare. A few seconds later, they rushed off. Erza turned to face the rest of the guild. Naruto appeared beside her, which startled Lucy. The male blonde gave a nod and withdrew a kunai as Erza summoned a sword. Lucy, we would welcome some assistance, Erza said. Lucy gave a confident nod. In spite of the situation, Naruto couldn't help a light chuckle. Hey, Erza-chan, how many can you handle? He questioned. Erza, serious as she was, knew it was speaking in jest to provoke their enemies, so she thought mock seriously for a second before smirking. It might be trouble if one more shows up, she said, and Naruto nodded his head slowly. Then that'll be the one I take care of, he added, and Erza grinned widely. Wait, you're fighting, she quipped in mock amazement, and Naruto grinned back at her. Sick of being ignored and feeling the two were mocking them, Eisenwald charged. Naruto veered right, dividing the guild's forces. 20 mages converged on him. He crossed his fingers and summoned 2 clones, each of them holding kunai. The 3 Narutos stood back to back. Erza took on the rest. She swung her sword and 5 mages fell before her. Erza felt herself slowly getting tired, but she forced herself to stay focused on the task at hand. She requipped and her sword turned into a lance. She batted aside a group of attacking mages. Left and right, mages fell before her. She heard shouts and grunts off to her right. Naruto was unstoppable. She had never seen someone fight like he did. He may have been outnumbered, but he had the mages outclassed. His 2 clones made up for it in teamwork. Naruto took out mage after mage systematically. When a mage broke through his defense, one clone would block the attack and the other would counter almost immediately. Naruto would knock out mages with swift and decisive strikes, blocked attacks with casual flicks of his kunai. It was mesmerizing to watch, but Erza had to keep her attention on her own fight. She requipped again and summoned 2 short blades. She slashed wildly and 4 mages fell again. One mage almost got past her guard. She slammed the hilt of her short sword against his head and the mage staggered back and fell. Just then she heard the clang of metal behind her and a grunt as a punch landed. She looked back to see Naruto knock another mage unconscious. Be careful, Erza-chan, was the only thing he said before dashing off to confront another set of mages. She felt grateful toward Naruto, but also ashamed. She realized what had happened. If Naruto hadn't stepped in, an enemy might have landed a lucky blow from behind. How did she miss that? Her exhaustion was throwing her off. She didn't have time to think about that now, though, as 10 mages charged. She could hear Lucy shouting orders to a celestial spirit she summoned. Erza turned to see a tall man with crab-like features attack the Eisenwald mages with nothing but 2 pairs of scissors. The mages were no match for the spirit as they were defeated with all of their hair completely cut off. Lucy pumped her fist in triumph. "Thanks, Cancer," Lucy exclaimed as her spirit disappeared. Now there were only a handful of them left. Erza decided it was time to finish this. She knew it was a risky move. She was already low on magic energy. She didn't even know if she could pull off a full-body requip, but Erza had to try though. Requip. A bright light enveloped her body as she changed into her fairy armor. The mages backed away from her as they beheld her new suit of armor. A mage blasted her with a magic energy beam, but she deflected it with her sword. She summoned 10 swords before shouting, "Dance my swords." The swords circled each other and launched themselves against the mages of Eisenwald. Deja vu, Erza thought. She transformed back into her normal armor and panted. She was almost completely drained of magic energy. Erza noticed that a rather plump mage had phased into the ground and slipped away. "Lucy, go after him," she called out and pointed to the fleeing mage. Lucy wasn't crazy enough to defy Erza, so she dashed off in pursuit with Happy following behind her. Erza watched her as she ran up the stairs and disappear into a hallway. She felt tired to the bone. She didn't even realize that she was starting to fall forward. Fortunately, Naruto caught her. He wrapped one arm around her waist and one on her shoulder to steady her. She leaned on him for support. "I think you overdid it this time, Erza-chan," Naruto said. He slung her right arm over his shoulder and his other arm around her waist. She saw that those 2 alluring blue eyes were fixated on her. "Don't worry, I've got you." He smiled at her. Erza couldn't explain it. Maybe it was because of her lightheadedness, but she began to relax and let herself be supported by Naruto. Erza had only met him a few days ago and she barely knew anything about him, but she had never felt like this with anyone else before. Even in the guild, she had to appear in charge and strong in front of everyone else. With Naruto, Erza felt calm and even a little bit hopeful. Naruto had that strong confidence in himself that made you think anything was possible. He had that cheerful, boyish demeanor that made you want to like him even more. Reaching into the equipment pouch on his hip, he pulled out a small, lumpy bag and reached into it, pulling out a round, black pill that could have been mistaken for a small marble. "Here. Hyarogan, energy supplement based on a type of special military rations pills. You look ready to drop." Nodding, Erza took the pill and popped it into her mouth and started chewing it as Naruto started up the stairs, carefully adjusting himself to help keep the both of them balanced. They started down the corridor, heading to the balcony. Erza knew Naruto must be heading to address the crowd of people that had gathered outside the train station. It was the logical thing to do since they were in range of the speakers and would fall victim to lullaby. Naruto didn't look it, but he was pretty smart when he wanted to be. "Naruto, I can stand," Erza told him. That pill actually had helped, surprisingly enough. Naruto didn't look completely convinced, but he did as she requested. They were at the balcony now. A collective number of people had gathered in front of the train station and a military barricade stood in front of them to prevent the crowd from entering the building. 2 employees spotted them as they arrived. "Hey, you can't be up here, the station is closed," one of them said. He held a megaphone in his hand. He had been trying to reassure the crowd that they were experiencing technical malfunctions with the train. Even so, the crowd grew restless. Without warning, Erza took the megaphone from his hand and approached the edge of the balcony. The employee protested, but Erza ignored him. Naruto gave him an apologetic smile as he scratched his head, a little embarrassed. Erza began to speak into the megaphone. "All of you are in grave danger, leave this station at once," Erza commanded. The people only looked at her with confusion. "Why?" one of them called out. Erza clenched her fists. "Because if you value your lives, you will return to your homes and stay there." She spoke with such authority that some of them actually turned and left, followed by a few. Gradually, the people did as they were told and within minutes even the soldiers guarding the entrance cleared out. Erza handed the man back his megaphone and told the 2 employees to go home as well. She and Naruto were about to head back inside when they were blasted backward by a gust of wind. Erza heard Erza laughing. She turned to the sound only to find a gigantic wind barrier has encircled the entire station. Erza could hear Erza's voice from the outside. "Well, now that you fairies are trapped inside my indestructible wind barrier, I might as well be on my way. Thank you for making this so much easier for me, ha ha ha." Before Erza could stop him, Naruto ran towards the barrier and tackled it. He was blasted backward and landed on his back painfully with a grunt. She could see that his shoulder had been cut multiple times. He pressed his hand over his wounds and Erza helped him on his feet. "Damn, that is one powerful wind jutsu," Naruto said with grudging respect. Erza scowled in confusion. "What is a jutsu?" Naruto opened his mouth to respond but was cut off by an explosion inside the building. Erza and Naruto nodded to each other, knowing that Natsu had probably been the cause of it. Together, they dashed back inside to find their friends. Erza and Naruto raced past the halls as they tried to find the source of the recent explosion that shook the station. They rounded a corner and bumped into Lucy, Gray, and Happy. "You guys heard it too, right?" Naruto asked. They all nodded in response. Together they raced up the flight of stairs without further discussion. The group found Natsu and Kejama at the top of the staircase. Kejama sat against the wall covered in burns and bruises. Natsu stood in front of a demolished wall. Erza noted that beyond the destroyed wall, Natsu had obliterated several other rooms. He just stood there looking smug about his triumph against the Shadow Mage. That must have been a hell of a punch, Natsu, Naruto appraised. You must have destroyed at least 5 rooms. Natsu grinned. Please, there was nothing. Erza turned toward Kageyama, who lay helpless before them. Now Erza had to decide what to do with him. Should they just leave him here? No, that would not be the right thing to do. Besides, they weren't going anywhere unless they somehow managed to get past Erza's wind barrier. Erza sighed. We should get him some medical attention. Erza told her companions. The fairytale mages looked at her in disbelief. Erza, you do realize he's from Eisenwald, right? Lucy asked nervously. The 2 other boys from the guild did not seem to understand her motives either. Naruto, on the other hand, understood and knelt in front of Kageyama. Can you stand? Naruto asked. Kageyama hesitated and looked away. Why were these people helping him? He was their enemy. If the roles were reversed, Kageyama would have just left them to rot. He sighed, not knowing what else to do. He shook his head. The pink-haired dragon slayer really did a number on him. Naruto moved to help him stand when Kageyama gave a sudden grunt of pain. At first, Erza thought that Naruto triggered an injury. Then, to her horror, blood began to flow from his mouth as someone had stabbed him from behind. He fell forward to reveal that the plump mage Erza saw escaping earlier was phased into the wall and holding a bloody knife. The others gave a cry of alarm as the incident occurred. Natsu was the first one to react. He clenched his 2 fists and lit them on fire. He looked at the assailant with sheer outrage and began to advance on him. How could you? Natsu demanded angrily. He was from your own guild and you betrayed him. Is this how you Dark Guild members treat each other? He pulled his flaming fist back and landed a devastating blow on the mage, who was trembling in fear. Natsu destroyed the mage and the wall in front of him in one powerful move. The mage, still among the piles of rubble, clearly unconscious. Naruto began to treat the stab wound Kageyama had received, his hands working furiously to stop the flowing blood. Kageyama was still breathing, but incredibly weak. Within a few minutes, Naruto had managed to cease the blood flow coming from the wound. He then ordered Gray to help him carry Kageyama outside. Once they were outside, they were confronted by a new problem. They set Kageyama down to rest, while the group thought of a way to get past the treacherous rotating winds. Natsu was no help at all. He kept charging at the barrier and kept being blasted back. Thankfully, Lucy got him to stop after a few minutes. Hey guys, we need a way to get out of here fast, Gray said suddenly. Why is that, Gray? Erza questioned. Gray began to relate his fight with an Eisenwald guild member and how they planned to use Lullaby. Erza felt a sense of dread crawl up her spine. The station was never their original goal in the first place. Their target was the guild masters. Erza cursed mentally. Master Makarov was currently residing in Clover, where the guild masters conference was being held. The impact of Erza's plan was devastating. The only problem was that they were stuck inside a powerful wind barrier that Erza did not know how to dispel. Maybe Kageyama knew, but he was lying unconscious and was in no fit condition to help them. Erza began to think of different ways on how to overcome their current predicament when she noticed Naruto standing off to one side looking at the swirling winds and seemed to be deep in thought that he didn't notice Erza approach him. We have to hasten our efforts, Erza told him. She began to relay Erza's plan to him. Naruto frowned. That would be bad. If the guild masters that are the leaders of the different guilds are killed, then the whole system would be thrown into chaos, right? Erza nodded. Frustrated, Naruto punched the barrier, only to pull it back when it had cut up his hand. Don't touch the wind, it'll rip you to shreds, Erza warned them. Lucy ran up to Naruto and looked at his injured arm. Naruto, are you okay? Naruto waved her off. Yeah, don't worry, I heal fast. She watched in awe as the cuts closed right before her eyes. You weren't kidding. Unable to believe it. Healing magic was considered a lost magic for a reason, yet this guy appeared to do self-restoration without even trying. Looking up from his hand, Naruto frowned at the fast-moving winds. Interesting. A magic that uses powerful rotating winds to contain a certain space. Naruto stared at his hand and pretended to hold an imaginary ball in one hand, mumbling to himself. Power, rotation, and containment ... that sounds really familiar ... and something about wind. He frowned. I remember now. The group was startled by the sound of Happy's voice. He began to rummage in the tiny cloth bag he always wore. He brought out a golden key and held it triumphantly. Lucy gasped. Happy, where did you get this celestial spirit key? Lucy demanded as she snatched the key from his hands. That's what I forgot to tell you, Lucy. I snatched it from that Duke Everloo guy. Happy said as if it was no big deal. What's a celestial spirit key? Naruto asked, completely dumbfounded. Well, for starters, it can open a gate to the spirit realm where celestial spirits live. You can call upon a spirit for help as long as you have a contract with him or her and that you have his or her key. Only celestial wizards are capable of doing this. Naruto, I'm a celestial wizard, Lucy explained. Naruto gave a nod of understanding. Well, what are you waiting for? Let's summon that spirit, maybe they can help us, Natsu urged. Lucy held the key above her head and brought it down, saying, Open gate of the maiden, Virgo. Suddenly, a small girl in a maid's outfit appeared before them. She had light purple hair and she wore broken shackles on her wrists. She placed her left hand on her chest and bowed respectfully to Lucy. "You summoned me, mistress," she stated politely. Lucy seemed to be remembering something when she snapped her fingers. Lucy pointed her finger at the maiden accusingly. "You were the big ugly maid who attacked us." Natsu and Happy stared at her in disbelief. "What? But she looks different. I changed my appearance to the preference of my keyholder's ideal image of beauty. But if you want princess, I can transform if you wish." Before Lucy could protest, she changed her appearance into a very large and ugly maid. Naruto and Gray flinched at the sudden transformation. "No, the previous one was fine," Lucy quickly said. "In fact, don't transform into that ever again, it gives me the creeps." "Agreed," Naruto said. Virgo then explained how she could dig underground as that was part of her magic. She began to twirl and fell into a deep hole that started to turn into a small tunnel. Erza and the others proceeded to crawl through the underground passage with Kejama in tow. They emerged outside of the barrier next to the magic mobile. "I shall be going now, princess," Virgo informed Lucy and vanished a moment later. They positioned Kejama in the vehicle when Gray suddenly asked, "Where are Natsu and Happy?" Erza turned a full circle and realized that Gray was right. Natsu and Happy were nowhere in sight. Off to one side they heard Naruto give a small chuckle. "Oh, they're probably going to do something stupid. I saw Happy take off with Natsu after we got out of the tunnel. That idiot, he probably went after Irigro," Lucy exclaimed. "Ah, he'll be all right. If anyone should be worried, it should be Eriger," Naruto said confidently. "Let's have some faith in him." Erza smiled and nodded. Naruto was right, and despite his brash attitude, Natsu was a very powerful wizard. She would never admit this to him personally because that might cause his ego to grow bigger. In fact, Erza felt that Natsu could even be more powerful than herself. He had so much untouched potential he had yet to discover. Apparently, Naruto could sense it as well. "Well, we better make sure he doesn't go overboard again." Erza began to climb the driver's seat when Naruto stopped her. "Maybe I should drive for now, Erza-chan," he suggested. Erza waved the offer away. "I'm fine, Naruto. I still have plenty of magic reserves." Without waiting for him, she strapped on the device and Naruto had no choice but to join Lucy and Gray inside the magic mobile. The vehicle began to accelerate towards Clover. They found Natsu and Happy an hour later. The trip would have gone a lot faster, but Erza decided to take it slow. She had never felt so tired in her life. They stopped on the railroad tracks in front of Natsu and Happy. "You guys should have seen it. I kicked Eriger's ass," Natsu said loudly. "Aye, sir," Happy said. Erza had to be careful climbing down from the driver's seat to prevent her from falling to the ground in fatigue. The rest of them climbed down from the vehicle. Kejama, who was now awake as well and slightly recovered, joined them, although he kept toward the back. "Well, that's great and all, Natsu, so where is he?" Naruto inquired. Natsu turned to look at a spot behind him where he must have thought Eriger lay unconscious and patted the very ground as if Eriger laid invisible on the railroad tracks. "He was right here," Natsu assured them. "Idiot, you let him get away," Gray said angrily. "Well, let's just be grateful that he failed to carry out his plan," Erza said. Natsu began to recount his battle with the Wind Mage. It involved many punching gestures and a kick here and there. Happy jumped in whenever he saw the chance. Erza was just relieved that it was finally over. She was so tired and she just mostly listened to the recount of the battle. Everyone was so engrossed in Natsu's story that they failed to notice Kejama pick up a small wooden flute and climb onto the driver's seat of the magic mobile, too late. The engine hummed to life and they barely managed to avoid the speeding vehicle as it rocketed past them. Kejama would have slammed into Erza if Naruto hadn't pulled her out of the way. "You fools, I can't believe you fell for it. Lullaby is mine," Kejama called behind them as he speedily made his way toward Clover. They stood there momentarily shocked by what had just transpired. Natsu could barely contain his outburst. "That jerk," Natsu shouted. "After him," Erza commanded. She took a step forward and groaned. She was utterly drained. The others paused to notice this. "Are you okay, Erza?" Lucy asked. The others looked at her with worry. "I'm fine, go after him, I'll catch up," she commanded them. They hesitated, but after the look she gave them they started to dash after Kejama. Naruto stayed behind. He knelt down facing away from her. "Get on, we have to catch up," Naruto said. Erza realized that he was offering to carry her. "No, Naruto, I can hold my own," Erza began to say. "Would you just get on? This isn't the time for pride," Naruto said, tiredly. He seemed determined about this and Erza knew he would not take no for an answer. She relented. She wrapped her arms around his neck and he carried her from under her knees. Naruto smiled back at her. "Hold on tight." He began to dash toward Clover with Erza on her back. Erza was amazed by his speed. Apparently, she didn't even weigh him down. She felt his heartbeat through his clothes and felt the rhythm of his feet on the ground. Within moments they caught up to the others and Naruto matched their pace easily. The others were just as surprised as he caught up with them. "Hey Natsu, I have a question for you," Naruto told them as they were running. "If Eriger had Lullaby, and as Lucy explained, anyone who hears its melody will instantly die, then why didn't he use it against you?" Natsu paled at the thought. Everyone else stared at Naruto wide-eyed as they considered that scenario. Erza was left speechless as she considered the possible outcome. "Let's just be glad that Eriger didn't think of that. Now, let's move," Erza said. It took them quite a while to reach Clover on foot. When they got there the sun had already set below the distant horizon. They crouched low behind some bushes, a good distance away from Kageyama and Master Makarov. Naruto and the others were told to keep quiet and observe by the guild masters. They told them to let Master Makarov handle the situation. At first, when Erza had pointed out that the tiny old man standing in front of Kageyama was the guild master of Fairy Tail, he felt kind of disappointed. To hold such an honorable title as guild master, he expected someone that was at least regular height. The old man in front of Kageyama was no taller than his thigh and wore silly elf clothes. In fact, the other guild masters didn't look impressive either. Naruto noted that the guild master Bob was dressed like a girl and the fact that he kept getting too close for Naruto's comfort. He also did the same with Natsu and Gray. Naruto had to resist the urge to run as far away from the guy as much as possible. Although he was disappointed with the guild master's first impression they made on him, he decided to think better of it. They may not look like much, but they were called guild masters for a reason. Just by looking at Makarov's small figure made Naruto realize that he might be more powerful than he gave Makarov credit for. Underestimating people, whether friend or foe, is a grave mistake he couldn't afford to commit. Naruto tensed as he saw Kageyama put the flute to his lips, ready to unleash Lullaby's melody. He rose from crouched position when a pair of hands stopped him. It was Erza and Natsu. They shook their heads and gestured for him to remain silent. He didn't know why they were willing to let Kageyama murder them all with one note from Lullaby. Sighing mentally, he crouched next to the others. Kageyama had the flute to his lips now, but he hesitated. He could kill the tiny old man in front of him right now. He would be welcomed back to the guild as a hero. He would bring his guild the honor they deserve. So why was he having second thoughts now? Kageyama remembered the Dragon Slayer's words as he was stabbed from behind by his guildmate. He could feel the passion and sincerity in his voice. Even when they were enemies, they still treated his wounds and had not abandoned them. Was this what he truly wanted? Makarov saw him hesitate. Well, aren't you going to play a melody for me? I don't have all night. Kageyama didn't respond. He couldn't meet the master's eyes. Makarov sighed. You know, it doesn't have to be this way. I've seen many things and lived a very long life. I can tell when a young man has lost his way. Makarov turned away from Kageyama and continued. As a guild master, it is my job to help the bright and capable youths that will one day surpass me. That is why we are elected to be the masters of the guild. We teach the young ones what we know and set them on the proper path whenever we can. It is a hard and long road for them though. Not everything is easy, but with a little guidance, I know they will reach their destination. All I have to do is to believe in my young brats as they choose their own path to follow. Choose your own path and don't let that flute get in the way. Kageyama lowered Lullaby and dropped to his knees. He couldn't do it. I surrender. Makarov turned to look back at the kneeling young man who hung his head in defeat. Makarov sighed. These youngsters had a longer way to go. Meanwhile, Naruto breathed a sigh of relief as he witnessed what had just transpired. He stood and joined the Fairy Tail mages as they approached their guild master. The other guild masters were there as well. The master was surprised to have Erza, Natsu, Lucy, Gray, and Happy running to approach him. They congratulated him and commented on how he handled the situation quite nicely. Naruto held back as he watched the chemistry between Fairy Tail. It made him feel strangely lonely. Naruto couldn't help but feel as if he had something that they had before. They were more than just mages and guild masters. Fairy Tail was a family. Naruto felt a strange sensation all of a sudden. He couldn't explain it, but he felt a sudden change in the atmosphere. He could sense rage, malevolence, and most of all, hunger emanating from somewhere towards his right. He realized that Lullaby had begun to radiate powerful magical energy. They heard an evil voice that stunned them. Fools, I grow tired of you worthless wizards and your antics. A gigantic magic circle appeared in the sky. It gave off bolts of dark energy. The mages could just stand and watch as a gigantic, monstrous, wooden humanoid appeared out of nowhere. Naruto gaped at the creature's size. It was as tall as the low-lying mountains that surrounded Clover. It had a skeletal form and 3 empty eye sockets. He knew that this was Lullaby's true form. It's huge, Lucy shrieked. Lullaby turned toward the mages. I shall devour your souls myself. They all just stood there in the presence of the gigantic demon. In the distance he heard a massive military force marching toward them. Lullaby blasted the next mountain into pieces. The military's retreat could be heard a few moments later. Pathetic, Naruto thought. While he understood the demon's power was indeed frightening, if the military were going to run away when things got tough, then what was the point of being a soul eater? Pitiful humans, I prefer the taste of a wizard's soul. Lullaby mocked. Oh yeah, well, I'd like to see you try. Natsu shouted up at the demon. Once the civilians were at a safe distance, Naruto noticed the guild masters were also at a relatively safe distance, meaning they're probably going to sit this one out. How noble of them. Lullaby unleashed a furious roar that made Naruto's ears scream in protest. He covered his ears as he tried to block out the sound. When the roar ended, Naruto noticed Erza, Natsu, and Gray begin to launch an attack against the demon. They charged and began their assault on the demon. Erza had requipped into her knight's armor and began slicing the demon. Lullaby stumbled as Erza to bombard it with sword slices. Gray stood up to one side and brought his hands together. A thick layer of cool mist surrounded him as he shouted, Ice make, lance. A dozen spears made of ice launched themselves at the demon. It staggered backwards, but quickly recovered only to be punched by Natsu's flaming fists. Naruto couldn't just stand here, he had to help. He saw that the relentless attack on the demon was slowly driving toward a certain mountain at the south of Clover. He didn't know why, but the image of Aragorn's wind barrier suddenly came to his mind. He felt like his mind had been struck by lightning. He now knew how to even the odds. He dashed off toward the mountain with all of his speed. He could see that Erza had changed her armor again and Grey launched a spinning ice disc at the demon. Natsu was raining fire down at Lullaby, but he couldn't afford to get distracted now. Hang on guys, Naruto thought. Don't let up. Erza slashed wildly as the Lullaby swiped at her. Their attacks on Lullaby seemed to only enrage the demon even more, but not doing any lasting damage. They needed to end this soon. Pathetic wizards, I've had enough. Lullaby roared. I shall end this now. Lullaby gave off an ear-splitting shriek. It sucked in a huge breath and Erza's eyes widened. She covered her ears and hoped that the others had the sense to do so too. Lullaby released its pent-up energy and wheezed. For a moment nobody moved. Lullaby looked crestfallen as its melody failed. Erza noticed small holes and destroyed sections. No wonder, Lullaby had been punched so full of holes from their assault that the air was just simply leaking out of the woodwind instrument-based demon. Lullaby roared in outrage. It smashed up and shot blasts of energy at random as the monster threw a temper tantrum like a little kid. Unfortunately, one of the blasts was directed at the place where all of the civilians were. Luckily, Grey created an ice shield just in the nick of time before the blast hit. Erza was prepared to attack again, but stopped when she noticed a lone figure standing on the small mountain top behind Lullaby. "Oi, ugly," a voice shouted. There was a huge puff of smoke and when it cleared, Erza saw hundreds of Naruto's clones fill the mountain area. Lullaby turned to face its new opponent. "What's this, a new soul to devour?" Lullaby asked curiously. Erza could see the movement among the mass of Naruto's clones. They formed glowing balls of energy on their hands. Within moments each clone held a glowing blue sphere of energy in their hands. One of the Narutos stepped forward. "I hope you've enjoyed your 10 minutes of rebirth, monster, because I'm going to end it now," Naruto shouted. All of the clones raised their hands with the glowing sphere. There were so many of them that they looked like they were holding blue stars in their palms. Lullaby roared. With a massive leap, all of the clones launched themselves at the demon, their hands ablaze with a strange power. Racing in barrage, the massive clones slammed their orbs onto the demon. Erza heard a massive explosion and the sound of Lullaby wailing in agony. A bright blue light flared and illuminated the evening sky. Erza and the others felt the shockwave that followed as Lullaby was destroyed. When the light faded, Lullaby was no more. The mages quickly dashed off to find Naruto. They found him standing in a huge smoking crater. He saw them approaching and started to walk toward them. Erza could not help but feel a little awestruck. Naruto had defeated Lullaby in one powerful move. When he reached them, they stood staring at him for a little while. "Hey guys, man, I'm hungry. Can we get something to eat?" Naruto said casually. Naturally, they jumped on him the moment they got to him. Natsu could barely contain his excitement. "That was awesome, Naruto. The way you defeated that monster and how you made so many copies of you and that glowing orb thing." Natsu chattered away excitedly. Lucy was mostly relieved that everyone was safe. Happy flew around in circles. Grey patted Naruto on the back. Naruto blushed slightly at all of the praise he was receiving. He scratched his head nervously. Meanwhile, Makarov was watching the young blonde as Erza congratulated him. He could sense enormous reserves of power inside of him. Makarov stood next to Guildmasters Bob and Goldmine, who were also watching the blonde in interest. "The boy's powerful," Goldmine commented. "He destroyed Lullaby in one stroke. Not to mention handsome," Bob said. He turned to look down at Makarov. "Is he one of your wizards?" Makarov shook his head. His eyes never left Naruto. "I've never seen him before today. Although he looks like he came with my children here." Naruto started to make a joke about Lullaby and the others laughed. Makarov frowned at the mysterious young blonde as he heard Bob saying, "Well, no doubt your wizards will convince him to join your guild. It's too bad. I would have wanted him on Blue Pegasus, but the poor boy's afraid of me." Bob sighed. Makarov chuckled slightly. "What makes you think I want him in my guild?" Goldmine snorted. "Please, you never turn away a lost soul as you had so calmly proclaimed earlier. Just look at him, he seems plenty lost." Makarov nodded. He could see the blonde now stomping around, impersonating the monster. Erza and the others burst out laughing. Underneath this cheery demeanor though, Makarov could see the sadness in the boy. He was confused and unsure. Makarov sighed. "You know me too well." After the battle, they made camp in the forest surrounding Clover. The town was in a wreck and Makarov thought it best to have his destructive charges away from any piece of civilization that would only get destroyed. Natsu and Happy were devouring their food. Grey lay on a fallen log making small ice sculptures out of boredom. Lucy was telling Natsu to slow down and save some food for the others. Erza and Naruto came to approach the master. "Master, this is Naruto Uzumaki," Erza introduced. "He has something he would like to discuss with you." Naruto nodded. "Nice to meet you, old man." Makarov looked him up and down. He wore a genuine smile and stood confidently. Makarov could place him about Erza's age. Underneath this though, Makarov could see hardness in him. He had a firm resolve. Makarov noticed that his stance may look laid back, but he knew Naruto was ready to move at a moment's notice. He had seen that before but never in someone so young. Instincts told him that Naruto had experienced more than his fair share of combat. He didn't know if that was good or bad. Walk with me, Naruto, Makarov requested. Naruto fell into step beside Makarov. It wasn't easy though because he had to take even smaller steps than usual. They had made it a good distance from the campsite when Makarov spoke. You're not going to ask me to listen to you play a melody, are you? Naruto smiled at the grim humor. No, I just wanted to know if you could help me with a little problem. Erza said that you might provide some help. He began to explain his side of the story. Makarov pondered at this. You have no memory at all. Naruto shook his head. I get these glimpses though. I see them every night. I still don't know what to make of them. They continued in silence for a while, the light of the campfire slowly fading behind them. Naruto could hear the sound of insects providing an eerie echo to the whole forest. Makarov turned to look up at him. I shall consider this. I never turn down a man who needs assistance. In the meantime, I have an offer in mind for you. What offer? Naruto asked curiously. Naruto stood on the opposite end of the enormous waterfall. Two gigantic statues faced each other. He stood one and the raven-haired boy stood on the other. The other boy took no notice of him and continued to walk in the opposite direction. Sasuke, Naruto called out. The Uchiha ignored him and continued walking. This enraged Naruto. In a massive leap, he closed the gap between them. He ran up to Sasuke, grabbed his shoulder and spun him around. But the boy in front of him was not the one he knew. Black marks covered a small portion of his face and his left eye was black. This wasn't what made him different though, it was his expression. His face was blank, emotionless. Naruto clenched his fists. A wave of great sadness overcame him. Why, Sasuke? Sasuke's face remained blank. That's none of your business. My childish games with you are over. I have my own path to follow now. Naruto couldn't believe what he was hearing. Everything they had been through had been nothing but worthless to Sasuke. Childish games. Their comrades risked their lives for him. Shikamaru, Choji, Kiba, Neji, and Bushy Brows. They all sacrificed themselves to save you. Sasuke didn't even react. His lack of emotion is what enraged Naruto. He tackled Sasuke to the ground. Naruto sat on top of his chest and punched him in the face. Sasuke didn't even grunt in pain. Sasuke spat blood. Naruto grabbed the collar of Sasuke's shirt and pulled him close. They glared at each other. I'm going to Orochimaru, Sasuke said. The thought of losing Sasuke to that snake left a cold feeling in Naruto's chest. Orochimaru. He's the one who destroyed the village and killed the third. Do you think he'll give you more power for free? Naruto shouted. Sasuke met his gaze evenly. I don't care. This frustrated Naruto even more. He tightened his grip on Sasuke's shirt. Sasuke spoke again. All I care about is accomplishing my goal. Naruto gazed into the eyes of his teammate. He could see nothing but anger and hatred, but it wasn't for him. Revenge has utterly consumed his friend. But Naruto was not going to let that happen. Naruto had finally come to the inevitable conclusion. They both knew that there was only one way to get what they both want. The two boys glared at each other. In that case, I'll take you back to the village myself, even if I have to beat you senseless. Naruto gasped and sat bolt upright. A fine layer of sweat had formed on his forehead. He dug his hands into the soft ground to create a firm hold on reality. A dream. But Naruto knew it was more than that, it was a memory. He looked around the campsite. Natsu and the others were still fast asleep. The sky was tinged with gray, meaning the sun would rise in a few moments. He wiped his face with his hands and stretched. He stood and decided to take a short walk. He made his way around the others, careful not to wake them. He sat on a fallen log a short distance away. He needed to get his thoughts together. His memories were resurfacing somewhat. Naruto still couldn't make heads or tails of anything though. Naruto was still experiencing a small bit of sadness from his recent dream. His friend had turned his back on him. If only he had stopped him, like Makarov did to Kageyama. He could have set him on the right path again. But revenge had clouded Sasuke's reasoning. Naruto had failed. He heard soft footsteps approaching and Erza took a seat next to him. Are you okay? Erza asked. She looked at him with concern. Naruto decided to answer honestly, no. She reached out and placed her head on his cheek, noting he was trembling. Gently, she turned his head to look at her. Naruto met her intense brown eyes that were focused on him. Her eyebrows were knit in a frown of worry. Can you tell me why? Erza said softly. Naruto decided to tell her about his recent dream. Erza listened intently and did not interrupt until he finished. He was grateful that he had someone to confide in. Naruto felt like a huge weight was lifted from his shoulders. Erza didn't say anything afterwards. Naruto knew that the important thing about life was to keep looking forward. Erza must know this as well because she didn't press him for more. The first few streaks of dawn were starting to illuminate the forest. Naruto stood suddenly and surprised Erza. He looked toward the now rising sun. Smiling, Naruto grabbed Erza's hand and pulled her to her feet. Come on, Naruto said, this is the best part. Without waiting for her answer, he picked her up and began to dash up the nearest tree. She yelped in surprise. Naruto kept running vertically up the trunk with Erza on his back. He stopped at the tallest branch and set Erza down carefully. The view was amazing. They could see the whole landscape spread out before them. The sun was now slowly rising, bathing everything in a subtle orange light. It's beautiful, Erza breathed. Love the sunrise. Just something that you can tell about yourself. Feel it, you know. Feels comforting when you have things like that. She turned to look at Naruto and she took the blonde's hand, holding it in her own. You don't have to do everything alone, Naruto. She told him. You may not remember the people from your past, at least not yet, but at least you're making new friends now. We are your friends. Naruto squeezed her hand. She was right. He may not recall any of his memories, but that wouldn't stop him from creating new bonds. And Naruto would protect those bonds. He nodded. Thank you, Erza-chan. A few hours later, they found themselves on the road again, heading back toward Magnolia. The group traveled in silence. Naruto considered his current situation. He was an amnesiac with no memory of his past. Looking around, he saw the faces of Natsu, Erza, Gray, Lucy, and even Happy. New bonds, Naruto thought, remembering his conversation with Makarov last night. Hey, I just had a great idea, Natsu announced. The teen ran in front of Naruto and held up a clenched fist. I've noticed that you're pretty strong, Naruto. Naruto raised his eyebrows. He knew where this was going. Natsu smirked. I want to fight you when we get back to Fairy Tail. Lucy shook her head in exasperation. Oh Natsu, we've just finished one harrowing mission and now you want to fight. Natsu ignored her, but the master spoke up. Don't worry Lucy, there will be no fight. Natsu gaped at Makarov. What? But why? Because, Makarov glanced at Naruto. Naruto is not a legitimate member of our guild. You cannot engage in combat with a civilian. Oh, come on, Natsu complained. The master was right of course, the other mages were starting to realize this as well. They had been too busy with the whole lullaby incident that they had overlooked the detail. Naruto, on the other hand, realized that the master was throwing him another silent invitation. That is a shame, Naruto said, sounding disappointed. He pretended to look deep in thought. He snapped his fingers dramatically as if he had an idea. Well, we'll just have to fix that problem, won't we? Yes, we will. Makarov smiled. Erza and the others perked up as they heard this. You mean you're going to join Fairy Tail? Natsu asked hopefully. Naruto smiled. Of course, I am. I heard that it's the best guild there is. You bet it is, Makarov affirmed. Naruto turned to Erza. What about you Erza-chan? Is it okay if I join Fairy Tail? Erza tried to hold a straight face. We would be lucky to have you. She nodded with a small, happy smile forming on her face. Natsu gave a whoop. With it the Fairy Tail members headed back home. It turned out that the hardest part was the application form. Naruto could not answer the simplest questions with his amnesia other than his name. Makarov assured him though that he would take care of those small details. As of today, he was an official member of Fairy Tail. The guild was in a riot as usual. Naruto had to dodge a flying mug as he made his way to the bar where Erza and Murajane were talking. Natsu and Gray were in the thick of the mob as small fights broke out. Naruto felt that it was going to take a while to get used to his new home. Oh Naruto, there you are. Mara greeted him as he approached. She took out a stamp and held it up. Where would you like your mark? Mark, Naruto asked. It's the symbol of our guild. All of our members have them, Mira explained. Now that she mentioned it, Naruto recalled that Natsu had the Fairy Tail brand on his right arm. Lucy had it on the back of her hand. Where's yours then? Naruto asked Murajane. Murajane gave him a playful smile. I can show you, but it's really private. Naruto blushed as he realized what she meant. He thought about it for a minute. He wanted it to be somewhere meaningful. Then his eyes widened and he smiled, having thought of the perfect place. Naruto unzipped his jacket and pointed to the spot where his heart was located, right here. Murajane and Erza couldn't help but admire his well-muscled body. What color would you like? Orange, Naruto said automatically. Mira pressed the stamp over the designated spot, and when it was pulled away, an orange brand of the guild could be seen imprinted on his chest. Just then Natsu came up to them and pointed at Erza. Hey, we still have some unfinished business. Oh yes, well let us get to it then. Erza stood and the two combatants walked outside. Naruto and the rest followed. Naruto, Mira said. She was blushing slightly. You might want to zip up your jacket. Naruto realized that he left his jacket unzipped. Why, you don't like what you see? He said playfully. Mira blushed even harder. Naruto laughed and zipped up his clothing and followed the rest outside to watch the fight. This was going to be interesting. Naruto stood among the small crowd of onlookers that had assembled outside the guild hall as he watched Erza and Natsu square off against each other. Next to him was Elfman Strauss, Mira's younger brother. There was not much family resemblance except for the silver-white hair. He was somewhat of a giant in Naruto's opinion. Naruto's height only reached up until Elfman's massive shoulders. He looked pretty intimidating too, with the scar on his face. He crossed his arms as he observed the fight. Naruto had to admit, both fighters were impressive in their own unique way. Erza had switched into one of her armors that seemed to negate fire. She swung her red sword as a pillar of flame shot towards her, the fire instantly diminishing. Natsu was on fire, literally. His hands were ablaze and he kept swinging his flaming fists at Erza, hoping to get past her defense and land a blow. From time to time he shot fire at her from his mouth, but it wasn't very effective against Erza's Flame Empress armor. Naruto watched Natsu as he kept assaulting Erza. No matter how many times Erza knocked him down, Natsu just kept getting back up. Despite all of this, Natsu never lost the smile he wore. For a moment, Naruto saw another battle taking place in his mind's eye. He saw himself and another boy who had white eyes, irises, and long hair standing in huge arena. The other boy was patronizing him and mocking him, telling him that people were only destined to be what they are. Naruto grew angry and unleashed an enormous reserve of manic energy. The wind started to pick up as Naruto's energy began to skyrocket. Naruto was shook out of his thoughts as Erza dodged a pillar of fire that was directed at her. Unfortunately, Naruto was in the way of the flame's path and barely managed to avoid the attack along with some others. "Hey, Naruto." Elfman gestured toward his elbow. "What are you ga?" Naruto quickly started to put out the fire on his right sleeve. A fight was beginning to heat up as Natsu and Erza decided to take it up a notch. On the side, Naruto noticed that Kana had started a betting booth. Natsu gave a shout and his flames burned brighter as he charged at Erza. The two combatants were both about to strike again when a loud clap stopped them. "Stop this fight," a voice called out. Naruto turned to the speaker and was startled to see a frog wearing regal robes striding through the crowd. Somehow, though, Naruto didn't find that all shocking. The frog brought out a document and cleared its throat as it began to read. "By the order of the Magic Council and by the many counts of property damage, one of your guild members is being charged with these. Another one of your members has been found guilty of being a rogue mage." The crowd tensed for a moment before the frog spoke again. "Erza Scarlet and Naruto Uzumaki, you are both under arrest." Naruto and Erza sat on one of the couches at the Magic Council's headquarters. They were told to wait in the room until they were summoned. Naruto felt restless and the handcuffs that were restraining him didn't improve his mood. Neither of them had spoken a word since they both got here. At first, Naruto thought it was a joke. The guild looked pretty worried when the frog messenger or whatever began to escort them away. Erza explained that the Magic Council was the ruling government of Fyore, composed of some of the most powerful mages in the land. Naruto couldn't care less about the council because based on the charges that were pressed against them, it seemed pretty shallow. If property damage and a false accusation led to an arrest, he'd hate to see what murder would get him. The frog came back after a few minutes. "The council will see you now." He and Erza stood and followed the frog as it led them toward the trail room. Naruto had to admit the place was impressive. Columns lined the corridors. Naruto had never seen such architecture. If this was only a branch of the Magic Council's headquarters, then he bet that the one in Ira was 10 times grander than this. Naruto noticed that there were many frog-like creatures roaming the building. All of them wore regal robes and tall hats. He had a vague memory concerning frogs. He couldn't place it, but the thought of talking frogs didn't seem foreign to him. Naruto was thinking about what connection he had to frogs when he suddenly bumped into Erza. He noticed that she had stopped walking and was looking towards something. Naruto followed her gaze and landed on a man leaning on a column. The man smiled as they noticed him. The frog got down on its knees and bowed to the man as he approached. "Seigrain," Erza whispered. "It's been a while, Erza," he said. The man wore a long white coat with black outlines. He had blue hair and was about Naruto's height and had some sort of tattoo on his face over his right side. He smirked as he noticed Erza tense. "Relax, I'm only sending a projection from Ira," Seigrain said. "I didn't think it would be important to attend a trivial matter." Erza's eyes hardened. "You're the one who's behind this. Come now, you know that I have always defended Fairytale," Seigrain said. "But the other council members are afraid that the blame for Clover's destruction will fall on them. That's why you're here. We need a scapegoat." Erza clenched her fists. It was taking all of Naruto's self-control not to punch this guy in the face. Seigrain walked up to Erza and leaned in close to Erza. "One other thing, Erza," Seigrain's voice dropped to a whisper. "Don't mention anything about our relationship to anyone else, for your sake." Naruto had heard just about enough of this crap. He was clearly mocking Erza and Naruto wasn't let anyone talk to any of his friends that way. "Why don't you just shut up?" Seigrain and Erza both turned to him. Naruto stepped closer to Seigrain and glared at him. "I don't know who or care who the damn hell you are, but if you mock any of my friends again." Naruto let the threat hang. Seigrain only looked amused. The frog attendant gasped. "You must be Fairytale's new recruit," Seigrain said. "What was your name again?" "Naruto," he answered. Seigrain nodded. "A word to the wise Naruto, it is not favorable to have a member of the council as your enemy." Naruto knew he was right, but his impulse got the better of him. Even though he was just a projection, Naruto grabbed his collar and pulled him closer. Seigrain himself was surprised that he had managed to come in contact with the projection. Naruto locked eyes with Seigrain, who was actually nervous. The councilman noticed that the blonde's eyes had turned red with an animalistic, vertical black slit for the pupil. Seigrain felt another kind energy touch his senses and his eyes widened in fear. "Who was this man?" The blonde continued to glare at the councilman. "Word to the wise right back at you, whether it's with words or actions. I don't like people upsetting my friends." Naruto let go and his eyes returned to normal. Seigrain regained his composure and the projection disappeared. Naruto turned to see Erza looking at him in worry. "You shouldn't have done that, Naruto," Erza said seriously. "He's right, you don't want the council as an enemy." Naruto shrugged. "I've got worse things to worry about than some entitled group of pricks." The frog attendant had gotten over its initial shock and began to lead them again toward the room where the trial was taking place. "But thank you, Naruto," Erza said softly. "I appreciate your intention." He smiled at her and she smiled back. "Anytime," he told her. Naruto stood in front of the 7 council members as a frog official declared beginning of the trial. The council observed him warily. Erza had been trialed ahead of him and was taken away after. He didn't know where exactly, but probably the same place where prisoners go. Naruto stared at the council. 4 of them were elderly. Seigrain sat among them watching him warily. A striking young woman with long dark hair caught his attention. She watched him with an amused smile. The head speaker began to address him. "You stand before the council, Naruto Uzumaki, with the charge of being a renegade wizard. You acted against Eisenwald without the membership of an official guild. He paused and Naruto took that as his chance to speak up. In my defense, I was already on my way to join a guild when everything with Eisenwald happened. Just got caught up in things with how events happened so quickly. So we've heard, the councilman in the middle said. But pray tell, why that particular guild? You were in the presence of over a dozen guild masters. You could have chosen any one of the other eligible guilds, yet you joined Fairytale. Did Makarov coax you into joining? The council members stared at him suspiciously. Naruto clenched his fists. He had to admit, they had a point. He could have joined any other guild besides Fairytale, but that wouldn't feel right. Still, he didn't like them talking about the master that way, but he forced himself to calm down. None of the others offered, and because of the Eisenwald incident, I learned to work with the members of Fairytale since there were none from the other guilds present. Why are you so against my guild? The older councilwoman spoke up. They are an unruly bunch. They have caused us more problems than we can count. But they have averted many major threats to our society. A small councilman countered. He wore a small hat and could barely only be as tall as Master Makarov. He stared at Naruto in sympathy. Of course you would take their side, Yajima. The councilman in the middle sighed. I am merely stating a fact. Yajima pressed. If it weren't for them, who knows what else might have happened with Lullaby. At what cost? They nearly destroyed Clover. The councilman on the far right argued. Maybe if you had helped instead of arguing and blaming people who had actually done some good, then we could have avoided this. I mean, would you have preferred the alternative and let Eisenwald use Lullaby to kill everyone rather than us having stopped that from happening? The words had left Naruto's mouth before he could stop them. All eyes turned to him. Identical scowls were formed on each of the council members' faces. Segran just continued to watch in amusement. Are you saying that the council is responsible for the events that have transpired? The head councilman said after a few moments of silence. Naruto held his gaze at his ex. Exactly the opposite of what the lad is trying to say. Yajima quickly interrupted. He flashed Naruto a warning look. He is merely stating the lack of military action that was needed during the Eisenwald incident. The other council members didn't look convinced. Yajima was clearly sticking his neck out for him, but the other council members did not fully agree with him. As far as they were concerned, by pointing out that a terrorist group would have been able to commit mass murder if no one had done anything about it, Naruto had just insulted them and undermined their authority. Naruto hated politics. No offense, Yajima, but I think Naruto meant exactly what he said. Segran spoke. He stared at the blonde with a confident smile on his face. Still, our friend here must be confused about how we operate, so why don't we just send him off with a warning this time? I'm sure he won't make the same mistake again. The same goes for the matter in Clover. Segran smirked down at Naruto. He must have a great influence among the council because they grudgingly accepted. Yajima's shoulders slumped in relief. Very well, send him with the other one. The head councilman spoke. The sound of a hammer hitting a board signaled the end of the trial. Frog attendants came to escort Naruto from the stand. Just before the projections disappeared though, Naruto locked eyes with a very smug Segran. His words rang in Naruto's ears. I'm sure he won't make the same mistake again. Segran made it sound like it was just a minor incident, but Naruto knew its true meaning. If he stepped out of line one more time, he was going to be in bigger trouble. The next day Naruto found himself sitting in a table back at the guild. It wasn't that bad after the trial. He and Erza only spent the night in a prison cell, but were released the following morning. Naruto did feel disappointed that he didn't get to thank Yajima after speaking out for him. It was the least he could do. He hasn't spoken a word of what happened with the council. He realized that he should act a little more carefully now because if he crossed the council again, Naruto was sure that the guild would pay the price, and he didn't want trouble for Fairytale. Everyone was overjoyed and relieved when they got back. They threw a small party just for the heck of it. Naruto sat next to Erza as they ate their lunch. She had gotten quiet since they got back. Naruto had to wonder what past Erza had with Segran. He couldn't work up the courage to ask, but figured it was her business and he shouldn't pry, even if he wanted to help. Natsu came up to them a little while later. He looked a little out of breath after the small riot he just started. Hey Erza, want to pick up where we left off? He challenged. Erza didn't even look at him. I'm not in the mood, Natsu, maybe some other time. Natsu looked disappointed. Naruto looked at Erza in concern. She kept her eyes on the table. The meeting with Segran had rattled her, but Naruto remembered his own promise as well. Natsu turned to leave when Naruto stood. Hey Natsu. The pink-haired boy looked back to see Naruto cracking his knuckles. Still want to fight? Naruto asked. He realized that he had caught the guild's attention, maybe because they hadn't seen him fight either. You did say you wanted to fight me after we left Clover. Natsu grinned in excitement. He slammed his fist into his palm. All right, I'm fired up. The guild had gathered in the park where the battle would be taking place. They'd taken the fight there after Naruto had suggested a need for a bigger, more clear space so there would be less collateral damage. Fairytale chattered excitedly and placed bets on the two fighters. They all knew Natsu was tough, but they knew almost nothing about Naruto except that he helped out with the Eisenwald incident. It was a pretty even chance for both combatants. Naruto took in his surroundings and took deep breaths as he flexed his fingers. Naruto had been in plenty battles and combat situations before. He couldn't explain it, but it felt like his body had remembered what his mind had forgotten. That would explain his fast reflexes and the way he seemed to react mostly on instinct. He breathed in the cool morning air. Standing 3 meters away from him was Natsu. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Although Natsu remained still, he could not conceal the small twitch in his right hand. Naruto knew he was going to attack the moment the match started. He had seen that twitch before. It showed when a predator was about to attack its prey. Erza stepped up to the middle of the field. She raised her hand and the guild fell silent. She dropped her hand, signaling the start of the match. Begin. As he expected, Natsu charged immediately. He lit both of his fists on fire and came at Naruto. Naruto sidestepped his first punch and ducked the second one. In his crouched position, he made a quick hand sign and summoned a clone that appeared directly behind Natsu. The pink-haired boy pivoted and slammed his fist into the clone before it could attack, which disappeared in a puff of smoke. In doing so, Natsu lost his focus on the original Naruto for a moment. But a moment was all what the blonde needed. As soon as Natsu turned to attack him, Naruto delivered 2 swift punches to his gut and swept his legs from under him. Natsu fell as Naruto jumped back. All of this happened in less than a minute. The guild cheered loudly at the display. A few were impressed with Naruto's ability to make clones. But still, the fight had only just begun. Natsu pushed himself back on his feet and sucked in a huge breath. Naruto knew what was going to happen next, so he flashed a few more hand signs. Yet he could have sworn for an instant, within Naruto's mind, Natsu was replaced with that of the arrogant, black-haired boy from Naruto's visions doing the same thing. Fire Dragon's Roar. A huge blast of fire engulfed Naruto. A few guild members thought Natsu had gone too far. Some took steps forward to help, but the master held out a hand. Natsu ended the attack and expected to find a badly burned Naruto in front of him. What he didn't expect, however, was a small charred log sitting where Naruto was. The guild members looked surprised at the development. Master Makarov just frowned thoughtfully. Natsu's head swiveled side to side as he tried to find his opponent. He kept his fists on fire and held them in a ready position. Even some of the guild members could not see where the young blonde had gone. Natsu looked up as if expecting Naruto to drop on him from above. He was shocked, to say the least, when a hand shot from the ground and grabbed his ankle. Naruto burst from the ground and aimed a punch at the stunned Dragon Slayer. Natsu sailed back a couple of feet as the punch connected with his face. He landed with a grunt as Naruto dusted himself off. "How did you do that?" Natsu asked, rubbing his face. He got back on his feet and resumed his fighting stance. Naruto smirked. "I used a simple substitution technique. I actually failed to accomplish it on my entrance exam though." "What?" Natsu asked in confusion. "Never mind," Naruto responded. "I guess it's my turn now." Naruto made a hand sign. Multiple shadow clone jutsu. A huge puff of smoke consumed the whole battlefield. When it cleared, 50 clones surrounded Natsu. The pink-haired boy turned a full circle and prepared himself to strike down the first clone that attacked him. Natsu knew full well that when Naruto's clones could only take one hit before they dispersed. The problem was that there were too many of them. It also didn't matter unless he could find the real one. But he wasn't ready to throw in the towel just yet. Naruto, on the other hand, began to admire the boy's determination and heart. Stubborn kid, he thought to himself. Despite that though, Naruto smiled. He saw a lot of himself in Natsu. No matter how hard he pushed the boy down, he always got right back on his feet. A match like this might be meaningless to most people, probably just a training exercise or a way to blow off steam. But he knew why Natsu always seemed eager to pick a fight. Naruto and Natsu knew that the only way to get stronger was to challenge the strongest opponents that there was. Natsu wanted to fight Erza because he knew that if he defeated her, that would mean he was one step closer to becoming the strongest. Naruto felt the same way. That's why he and Natsu were giving this fight their 100%. The clones converged on Natsu. Natsu threw flaming punches at the nearest clones and the first 5 dispersed. The clone's memory came rushing back to Naruto. He tried to adjust his strategy. Naruto tried to blend in with his clones so that Natsu wouldn't be the wiser. Natsu kept destroying his clones. Natsu breathed a blast of fire again and 20 clones dispersed. As Natsu continued to defeat his clones, Naruto was beginning to have a clear sense of how Natsu fought. He began to formulate a plan. Natsu fought brashly and wild. He doesn't think before he attacked, and Naruto planned to use it to his advantage. Natsu had raw power and strength, he'd give him that, and while he admitted he liked the fearless, head-on attack method the Pinkette used, the Uzumaki also felt it might be his shortcoming. All Naruto just had to figure out how to exploit it. Natsu had already defeated most of his clones, and that left 4 Narutos on the field. Natsu panted and prepared to advance again. Naruto created 4 more clones and prepared to attack as well. "Hey, guys," the clones turned to the original. Naruto flashed a few hand signals and the clones nodded. By now, Natsu had already spotted the original one. He saw one of them giving some sort of silent command. There were 8 blondes standing in front of him, but that didn't matter. He'd burn all of them to a crisp. Then Naruto shouted, "Now." The clones sprang into action. Natsu readied himself as the clones closed in on him. 2 clones attacked him on either side, but he was ready this time. Natsu thrust out both of his flaming fists on both sides and slammed it into the clones. The next clone came at him with a kunai. The clone thrust the knife out toward Natsu's face. Natsu dodged it and rammed his knee into the clone. Natsu heard a shout from above and saw 2 clones coming at him from the air. Natsu leaped to meet them. Fire Dragon's Wing attack. The clones dispersed as the fire engulfed them. Natsu landed in a crouched position when he heard a whistling sound. He looked up and saw a giant shuriken flying toward him. He fell backwards, barely dodging the weapon. When Natsu got back on his feet, he saw Naruto and a clone forming a small glowing sphere in his hand. The clone dispersed and Naruto dashed toward Natsu. He only managed to take in a deep breath before he felt like time slowed down. Fire Dragon's Roar. Rasengan. Naruto slammed his sphere into the pillar of fire that was shot toward him. The attacks collided and Naruto continued forward, holding out the blue sphere in front of him to avoid getting hit by Natsu's fire. Naruto could feel the intense heat of Natsu's flames, but he continued to push forward. He struggled to keep his hand level with the fire. Natsu could tell that Naruto was advancing, using his blue sphere as a shield. Natsu extinguished his fire suddenly, throwing the blonde off balance. Natsu lit his hand on fire and slammed it into Naruto's chest. The blonde fell back hard and landed on his back. The match is over, Natsu heard Erza announce. Natsu smiled triumphantly. He turned to look at Naruto on the ground and saw that the blonde was also smiling. Natsu frowned and wondered why Naruto was grinning when he felt it. Something sharp gently touched the back of his head and along the front of his neck. Naruto stood. The winner of this match is Naruto, Erza announced with a slight grin on her face, and the guild cheered loudly. Natsu turned around to find another Naruto pointing a pair of kunai at him. The clone winked at Natsu before dispersing in a puff of smoke. How? The pink-haired boy asked. You miscounted, Naruto replied. Remember the shuriken? Natsu frowned in thought. He remembered 8 clones moving to attack him. He defeated the ones coming from above before that shuriken. Natsu palmed his face. I forgot you could transform. Naruto chuckled good-naturedly. Better luck next time. I want a rematch, the Dragon Slayer demanded. By that time the whole guild had encircled them. A few gave Naruto pats on the back, congratulating him for the victory. Money was exchanged as people won and lost their respective bets. Happy tried to console Natsu. It's okay Natsu, you'll win next time. I know I will. Let's go again, you and me, Naruto. Naruto's sweat dropped at the boy's challenge. Haven't you had enough for one day? That was quite a fight. You obviously have a lot of tricks up your sleeve, don't you boy? The master commented. Naruto grinned. The master cleared his throat and called for everyone's attention. Well, now after an exciting match, there's only one thing left to do. Let's celebrate everyone, back to the guild hall. Naruto sat at one table a little while later. Joining him were Lucy, Erza, Gray, Elfman, Happy, and a grumpy Natsu. The guild was in full party mode. Murajane went from table to table serving everyone their food. Numerous voices shouting, laughing, arguing, and joking could be heard throughout the room. The people around the table stared at Naruto in amusement and awe. He had just finished his 17th bowl of ramen in less than 20 minutes. Finally, he set down the bowl after gulping down the soup and sighed. Man, that was good, Naruto exclaimed. He looked over to where Mira was serving and called out. You make the best ramen, Murajane. The silver-haired woman smiled at him. Why thank you, Naruto. Elfman nodded in approval. Yes, you have an appetite of a real man. That's when a strange calm entered the room. Naruto felt himself getting drowsy all of a sudden. He looked around to see everyone falling asleep for no reason. Naruto's eyelids felt very heavy. Gray groaned. Oh no, not him, I hate it when he does. Gray's head hit the table, unconscious. Naruto's mind felt blurry. Who was Gray talking about? He could feel himself drifting off, but he slapped himself awake. The effect was only temporary, he was drifting off again. His brain was ringing alarm bells in his head. Wake up, you idiot, he told himself. The rest of the guild was asleep now. His companions rested their heads on the table as they slept. He seemed to have an idea. Concentrating, he ceased the flow of energy in his body. After a moment he released his hold and jumped to his feet. He felt wide awake. Naruto saw that the master was awake too. He sat at the bar, straining to keep his eyes open. He was moderately surprised when he saw Naruto standing. A man walked in the guild hall. He wore a dark blue bandana and cloth that covered his face, revealing only his eyes. His matching dark cape rustled as he walked up to the board where the guild members took jobs. He took down a piece of paper with a job description and approached the master. He carried a long wooden staff. I would like this job, he said. Naruto had a strange feeling that he had heard that voice before. He didn't know why, but it sounded recently familiar. Very well, take care of yourself, was the master's only reply. He turned to leave, but Naruto blocked his path. What are you doing? Naruto questioned. Taking a job request, the man replied evenly. Yes, I can see that, Naruto said a bit irritated. I meant, why are you putting the rest of our guild to sleep? Naruto, Makarov spoke. This is Mistogen, one of our S-rank mages here in the guild. What he is doing is completely harmless and understandable, all in an effort to keep his identity hidden. Why? Mistogen and Makarov shared a glance. It's a private matter. Mistogen stepped around Naruto and stopped beside him. He looked Naruto up and down. You are a very interesting mage, Mistogen concluded. Only few have been able to withstand my sleep spell. I look forward to meeting you again, Naruto. He started for the door. Naruto heard him start to count down. 3, 2, 1. Mistogen had left and the guild snapped awake again. Naruto heard groans from people who fell asleep in very uncomfortable positions. Erza blinked multiple times to wash away the effects of drowsiness. The little celebration in the guild seems to have subsided thanks to Mistogen. Lucy groaned. What happened? Mistogen, Gray responded, rubbing his sore neck. Erza seemed to notice Naruto standing near the bar. Naruto, how did you get over there? Naruto was about to answer when a loud voice spoke. Impressive, you didn't fall for Mistogen's cheap trick like everybody else. Naruto looked up to the second floor where a tall blonde man stood. An arrogant smirk was plastered on his face as he regarded Naruto. He had a lightning-shaped scar over his right eye. He wore a pair of spiky headphones and a big coat with fur that lined the edges over his long-sleeved polo. Naruto wanted to wipe that smirk off his face. The master tried to keep his irritation from showing. Laxus, this is Naruto, our newest member. I see. Laxus' smile turned into a sneer. Another weakling has joined our guild. At those words, some of the guild members flinched. Naruto clenched his fist to keep himself from lashing out at Laxus. How could he say such things to his own guildmates? Naruto wanted to tell the arrogant jerk to come down here and beat some sense into him, but Natsu beat him to the punch. Laxus, Natsu said angrily, fight me. Laxus only grunted. Please, you're not worth my time. He turned to leave when Naruto's voice stopped him. What's the matter, afraid to get your ass kicked? Naruto heard his guildmates gasp. Apparently no one has ever talked back to the blonde man before. Naruto saw Erza shaking her head when he caught her gaze. Other people couldn't decide whether Naruto was brave or insane. His taunt seems to have struck a nerve because what Laxus did next caught him completely off guard. A bolt of lightning struck the floor in front of Naruto. When the light subsided, Laxus stood there glowering at him. It happened so fast that Naruto didn't have time to blink. Naruto met his angry glare and they had a silent face-off for a while. The guild was so quiet Naruto swore he could hear everyone's pounding heartbeats. What did you say? Laxus said angrily. You heard me, you spark plug-sucking prick. Laxus' hands threw sparks as his anger peaked. Naruto drew his kunai. Laxus, Makarov warned. The master trained his stern gaze on him. Laxus hesitated for a moment before his smirk returned. He turned to leave. Naruto heard him mutter under his breath, not worth my time anyway. With that he disappeared in a flash of lightning. The guild members released a breath they didn't realize they were holding. Makarov shook his head in disappointment. Forgive my grandson, Naruto, he has a bit of an attitude problem that needs fixing. Naruto was quite surprised at the revelation. Not much resemblance, he thought. Maybe in regards to the hair though. Still, the guy was obviously seriously lacking in regards to the kind of heart the master had. Making new friends everywhere I turn, Naruto muttered. That evening, Naruto decided to explore the rest of Magnolia. He wandered aimlessly, having no particular destination in mind anyway. The town really glowed with life at night. The streets were lit with street lamps and by the many stores and retailers that sold an assortment of items. Naruto caught a whiff of mouth-watering dishes as he passed by some restaurants. A lot of people roamed around too. Naruto saw a group of friends heading to eat out, a small kid hanging on her smiling mother's arm, a young couple walking arm in arm, and other joyful-looking people. It all felt really familiar and yet different at the same time. His memories were a bit foggy, but resurfacing somewhat. He closed his eyes and tried to recall from his currently few memories. He remembered a huge village surrounded by a thick forest. He saw a big mountain with 5 great stone faces carved into it. He could remember the smell of ramen coming from his favorite food stall. He could see a man with a horizontal scar on his face. Naruto felt happy when he saw the man. It was his first teacher, the man who made him a Naruto. Naruto's eyes opened and he found himself back in Magnolia. Natsu and Happy were running to approach him. Hey Natsu, Happy, what's up? Naruto greeted casually. Want to come with us to Lucy's house? Natsu asked. Naruto didn't have any other plans tonight so he agreed. Sure, lead the way. There was something odd about the pink-haired teen tonight. He wore a mischievous grin that Naruto knew all too well. Natsu, what are you up to? Naruto asked. Natsu just shook his head and kept smiling. Naruto asked Happy the same thing but the blue cat just held his paws to his mouth and shook his head. Naruto had a bad feeling about this. They arrived at Lucy's house 20 minutes later. Naruto was about to knock on the front door when he noticed Natsu and Happy flying up to the window. He guessed Lucy was in for a shock when she got home. Sighing, Naruto planted his foot on the wall and started to walk vertically on it with chakra until he reached Lucy's window. For some reason Natsu and Happy were both doing push-ups. Naruto entered the cozy little apartment and walked around. It had a simple design. A desk, a table, and a bed occupied the larger room. Naruto saw a small kitchen and a bathroom at the far end. Well, at least she had an apartment. Naruto had to make arrangements with Makarov to sleep in Fairy Tail's wine cellar until he could earn some money and get his own place. Natsu had changed into one-handed push-ups when Lucy arrived. What are you doing in my house? Lucy shrieked. Naruto shrugged innocently. Natsu invited me. Said boy was still doing push-ups on the floor. He looked up to face Lucy. Glad you're here. Natsu said. We have to keep ourselves fit for our next job. The celestial mage frowned. What job? Happy brought out a piece of paper and handed it to Lucy with a knowing look. Naruto looked over Lucy's shoulder as she read the job description. He only caught one glance when Lucy shrieked again, 8 million jewel to lift a curse on an island. That could set me up for months. Naruto took the paper from her hands. His jaw dropped when he saw the reward money. Boy, there was a lot of zeros. But there was no way a job with this kind of reward money would be posted on the request board. Then he noticed the ranking and his eyes widened. Tell me you didn't. the Uzumaki said. Erza had explained to him earlier that she, Laxus, and Mistogen were S-class mages. The second floor of the guild hall was off limits to those who are not S-class. Erza explained that S-rank jobs were extremely difficult and very dangerous to accomplish. Naruto understood that Natsu wanted to prove himself, but maybe he'd gone a bit too far with this one. I snatched it from the second floor when everyone wasn't looking. Happy said proudly. S-class. Naruto sighed. He turned to Lucy. Are you okay with this? Lucy fidgeted. Well, it sounds pretty dangerous, but the reward. Natsu pushed himself into a standing position. He turned to Naruto. What about you? You want to come? Naruto had to admit the reward was tempting. Even if they split the money among themselves, there was still a lot. Then again, this was an S-rank mission. Erza and Mistogen were strong. If there was an S-rank mage, then their set of missions must be extra hard. Besides, Naruto felt that it would be better if he undertook a job of his own. He wanted to earn his own living expenses, not just taking a cut from someone else. No thanks, Naruto said. He looked Natsu and Lucy dead serious in the eye. Look, you guys, this could get you expelled from the guild. If you can live with that and are seriously going to go through with this, you three need to be really careful. This isn't like the time with Eisenwald. It's going to be a lot harder than that. If you feel as if you can't handle it or you start having doubts, abandon the mission, alright. But Natsu tried to protest. Promise me you will. Naruto urged them both. The two looked at each other and back to Naruto. They both nodded. The two saw Naruto's shoulders fall in relief. Lucy felt touched by Naruto's concern for their well-being. In the short time they spent together, Lucy could see that Naruto was brave, thoughtful, and kind. She had only known him for a short time, but she began to look to him as an older brother that she never had. She was determined to keep her promise. Naruto placed a hand on both of their shoulders. You should leave before the sun rises. That should give you a head start. But it won't take long before Gramps knows you're gone. Naruto turned to leave but stopped near the window and looked over his shoulder. Don't worry, I won't tell. Just make sure you don't fail and come back alive. With that being said, Naruto leaped out of the window and started to dash among the rooftops. Naruto was floating in a dark, empty space. He felt numb for some reason. He just drifted through the endless darkness around him. The sensation felt familiar for some reason. Naruto wasn't dreaming, he could tell that much. The way he could feel his deep intake of breaths and the familiar heartbeat, it was too real. After a long while, Naruto was beginning to wonder if he was going to stay like this forever. The darkness just never seemed to end. He tried to move his arms around and swim through it because the sensation was similar to being underwater. He flailed around uselessly. Just then, Naruto saw an outline of a huge figure of some sort of animal lying down. As he drifted closer, the features of the creature were becoming more noticeable. It was a huge orange fox. He could see razor-sharp claws attached to its massive figure. Its intimidating size was enough to crush mountains. He could feel the massive energy reserves radiating from the fox. If Naruto had to describe it in one word, powerful would seem like a fitting attribute. The only bizarre feature Naruto could spot was that the fox had 9 tails. Kyuubi, Naruto spoke suddenly. The fox heard Naruto's voice and opened one gigantic eye. Its red feral slits focused on Naruto. Naruto, the Kyuubi spoke in a deep voice. You have lost your way. The next morning Naruto woke from his seated position, leaning on a tree. He sat up and stretched. Naruto yawned widely as he stood and rubbed his slightly aching back. A rock had lodged itself in the ground where he slept and it made sleep almost impossible last night. He decided to skip breakfast for now. He gathered his rucksack and made sure his gear was still intact. When he felt satisfied, he grabbed his belongings and began to dash among the trees. His current destination now was Lupinus Town, where he will complete his first job request. The following morning, after Natsu and Lucy undertook the S-class request, Naruto decided to go on a mission of his own. He didn't plan to spend the rest of his night sleeping in the basement. The master had quickly found out about Natsu thanks to Laxus, who claimed to have seen a small blue cat snatch up a request from the second floor. They sent Gray to bring back the two for punishment. Naruto felt sorry for those two when they got back. His job was fairly simple. Defeat a horde of undead that had been terrorizing a town. The reward was good, 800,000 jewel. That could at least enable him to rent an apartment. It would also last until he took on a new job. Mira had helped him pack for the journey ahead of him. She even insisted on accompanying him to the train station to see him off. Naruto courteously declined, saying that he won't be taking the train. Then how will you get to Lupinus? He remembered Mira asking. Naruto just winked at her, leaving a confused look on her face as she wished him good luck. Now, dashing among the trees, feeling the wind in his face, Naruto felt rejuvenated. This form of travel suited him. He never felt comfortable sitting idly inside a train. He preferred to be on the move himself. That way he could always adjust his route whenever possible. As he traveled, Naruto couldn't stop thinking about his encounter with the Kyuubi. The fox had some sort of connection to his past. Naruto couldn't explain it, but he knew the Kyuubi was a big part of who he was. The fox was a part of him somehow, he could feel it. Now, Naruto only had to find a way to contact him again if he could just learn how. By half an hour past noon, he began to see a faint outline of a town. Naruto stopped to perch on a high branch as he rummaged through his rucksack and brought out a map. Mira had given this to him in case he needed a reference of the landscape. The map confirmed that the town ahead of him was Lupinus. Tucking away the map, Naruto resumed traveling. Who needs trains? Not me. Naruto smirked to himself, practically hearing Natsu's moaning, groaning, and cursing him for being a lucky bastard while trying to avoid hurling from here. Upon arriving at his destination, Naruto wandered through the streets of the town, trying to look for the mayor's office or whoever ran the place. The paved stone road was filled with vendors and stalls. The buildings were neatly and systematically arranged. The whole block was full of stores that sold different kinds of clothing. Another sold food and other delicacies. The whole town was decorated for a festival. So why do the people look like they were preparing for a funeral instead? Everywhere he looked, Naruto was met with the weary and sad expression on everyone's faces. A few men were glumly hanging a banner for a celebration of some sort. Naruto saw a child, a young girl, clinging to her mother's clothes as they walked by. The girl was frowning because her mother looked so sad. "What's wrong, mommy?" Naruto heard the girl ask. He looked back to see that the mother had knelt down to face her daughter. "It's nothing, honey," the mother assured the little girl. She looked like she was trying to keep herself from crying. "I'm just afraid of tonight." "Why?" the daughter asked. The mother couldn't stand it any longer as she burst into tears and hugged her daughter tightly. She sobbed, and her daughter, not knowing what was happening, was confused about why her mother was crying. Other citizens looked on them with sympathy but made no move to comfort the mother. This left Naruto thinking, what the hell is going on here? Naruto found the mayor's office at the center of town. The secretary was reluctant to let him convene with the mayor until Naruto explained about the job request. When he entered the small office and sat down on one of the chairs in front of the desk, he was told to wait until the mayor arrived. He began to pace the little office space as time dragged on. There was a small bookshelf to the left wall that contained a small collection of books. The chair behind the desk faced away from the window. Naruto spotted a small photographed picture of a family that consisted of a stocky middle-aged man carrying a small raven-haired boy in his arms beside an elegant woman with long flowing brown hair holding a young girl that looked exactly like her. They all smiled as the shot was taken. Naruto heard the door open as the same man on the photograph came in. He wore a simple black coat and tie. His beard was cut short. Most of all, he looked tired. His shoulders sagged as if the heavy weights he carried were about to crush him. "You must be the S-Class wizard from Fairy Tail," he stated. "My name is Saburo. I'm the mayor of Lupinus." S-Class. Something about this didn't feel right. Naruto shook Saburo's hand. "Nice to meet you, sir. I'm Naruto." Saburo sat down heavily on the chair behind the desk, clearly exhausted. "I believe you have received my letter regarding the change in the job description." "What change?" Naruto asked. In light of the circumstances, the mayor looked over his shoulder nervously as if someone might be eavesdropping on their conversation. "I have changed the rank of this request to S rank, provided that the reward was increased as well." Something was definitely wrong here. Naruto had found the job on the normal request board. Naruto frowned. "We didn't receive any information regarding these changes." "Perhaps you're mistaken." Saburo's face fell. He slumped back into his chair. "This is terrible. What am I going to do now?" The man looked close to breaking down. He regained his posture somewhat and sat up to face Naruto again. "Sir, if I may ask, why change the request all of a sudden?" The whisked blonde asked seriously. "I sent that letter months ago," Saburo exclaimed. Naruto could now see just how tired he really was. He tried to hide it, but the mayor has gone through quite the ordeal. "It doesn't matter now, I guess," Saburo said dejectedly. He stared at Naruto with desperate eyes. "Whoever you are, I hope you can save us, because if you don't, then all of the people in this town will die." Naruto would admit that he wasn't the smartest guy in the world. Even with his missing memories, he was sure about that. But right now, the events were moving too fast for his brain to make sense of anything. So he tried to arrange the facts as chronologically and sensibly as possible. First, Saburo sent a letter regarding the change in the job request 7 months ago. The request was changed to S rank due to the current situation they were in. Saburo explained that over the past year, the people have been growing desperate. Naruto had to listen intently as the mayor began to recount the events. One night, out of nowhere, a group of undead corpses came and attacked the town. The citizens of Lupinus were caught off guard as the massive numbers of the dead nearly overwhelmed them. They fought and were able to drive them away, but of course, there were many casualties. After that, Saburo had placed a strict watch and added security measures just in case. It was fortunate that he did, because the undead returned the following evening. Lupinus had no mages of their own to assist them, which made it an even harder battle. These attacks continued for quite some time until they were forced to send for help. That was the original job request that Naruto took. But that was a year ago. They were able to hold off the attacks and waited for help to arrive. That was until 3 hooded wizards arrived to tip the scales. It was clear that one of the wizards controlled the undead. With their combined magic, the people of Lupinus were forced to surrender. The identity of these mages was yet to be discovered. Their goal was also a mystery. In exchange for sparing the town, the wizards asked for tributes every night to be sacrificed to them. In the dead of night, the undead would come and escort the volunteers back to their masters. At first, people volunteered to be taken away, but as the weeks passed, the numbers have dwindled into few. Their population has decreased at an alarming rate since then. A town of 400 citizens was reduced to a small 90. If this continues, then there will be no one left. When Naruto heard this piece of information, he slammed his fist on top of the mayor's desk in pure outrage. He decided right then and there that he would help these people even without the reward. Naruto was going to make these 3 wizards pay for what they did to this town. He felt his anger boiling up inside of him. After their discussion, Saburo decided to let Naruto reside in his house due to his lack of money. Naruto tried to decline, but the man was insistent. Now, they walked in silence as they made their way to Saburo's house. With his new understanding of the situation in Lupinus, Naruto now knew why the citizens were dreading tonight. He understood their clear mistrust of strangers and how they were reluctant to approach him earlier. It saddened him to think of a once lively town turn into this. The whole town will gather in the square tonight, Saburo informed him. That is where they usually claim their tribute. Naruto nodded. Do the wizards make any appearances during the selection? No, only the undead escort the person back into the forest, Saburo responded. We only know they are mindless and obviously under the control of a wizard, so it is possible that the controller will be observing at a distance to make sure everything goes accordingly. They continued in uncomfortable silence for a few minutes. Naruto could not think of any topic to start a small conversation. Saburo did not make any attempt in the matter. Naruto couldn't blame him. He obviously had other things to worry about. After a few more minutes, they reached Saburo's house at the corner of the street, a simple 2-story high building with a small porch on the front. The sun was almost setting by the time they arrived. Naruto followed Saburo to the front door. I'm home, Saburo called out as he entered the house. Naruto followed behind him. He heard light footsteps from the second floor. A young boy, maybe 8 years old, came running down the stairs to and met Saburo with a hug. Dad, you'll never guess what I found today, the little boy said excitedly. And what is that, Lance? Saburo asked curiously. Lance stepped back from his father and whistled. Toby, come here, boy. Just then, Naruto could hear small barks coming from the living room. A small brown puppy with floppy ears and a short tail burst from the room and jumped into the boy's arms. The puppy began to lick the laughing boy's face. Naruto smiled at the sight. Lance turned toward his father with hopeful eyes. I found him wandering through the streets. He didn't have collar, so that means he doesn't belong to anyone. Can I keep him? Saburo pondered at this for a moment. He fixed his son with a stern look. It's a big responsibility. I'll take care of him, Lance hastily reasoned. I'll feed, walk, and clean up after him. Please. He gazed up at his father with pleading eyes. The dog barked in agreement. Naruto just watched the communication between parent and child. Then a young woman appeared from the kitchen. She was no doubt the other child of Saburo that Naruto saw from the photograph. Obviously a few years older, she wore an apron over her green blouse and shorts. The girl held a ladle in her left hand. She brightened as she spotted her father. Naruto couldn't help but admire her seemingly effortless beauty that she radiated. Dad, you're home early, she said. She came up and hugged her father. When she pulled away was when she took notice of Naruto. Who's your friend, Dad? She asked. Saburo slapped his forehead. Of course, where are my manners? Children, this is Naruto Uzumaki, he introduced. Naruto smiled and raised a hand in greeting. Naruto, this is my daughter Alexa and my son Lance. The dog barked excitedly. Saburo paused, then added with a sigh. And this is Toby, our dog. Lance quickly turned to his father. Does that mean I can keep him? Saburo smiled at him. Yes, you can keep him. Lance gave a whoop of triumph, then carried Toby with him to the living room. So, Naruto, what brings you to Lupinus? We rarely get visitors, Alexa said, striking up a conversation. Naruto scratched his head. I came here for the job your dad requested from my guild. The moment he said that, Naruto wished he hadn't. Alexa's face darkened. She gripped her ladle so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Naruto could sense the silent fury she felt, and it was directed toward him for some reason. Dinner will be ready in a few minutes, she said to no one in particular. She gave Naruto one last cold look. After that she swiftly left and headed back to the kitchen. Naruto raised his eyebrows in confusion and Saburo gave him an apologetic smile. Afterwards, Saburo led Naruto upstairs to a spare bedroom he could use. The room was small and simple. Naruto placed his belongings on the bed and sat on the mattress. You'll have to forgive Alexa, Saburo spoke after a moment of silence. She dislikes mages and other magic users. Why? Naruto asked. Saburo sighed and sat down next to Naruto on the bed. It's because of her mother. Naruto frowned. What happened? She wasn't normally like this, Saburo explained. Ever since the attacks, the people have been growing weary. And when the pact was made between the wizards, everything got worse. Night after night, people left and never came back. I sent a scouting party to follow them into the forest after the choosing, but they never returned. One night, a few months ago, as we gathered in the market square, we felt that hope was utterly gone. No more than half of us remained. No help was expected and we were prepared for the inevitable. The dead came and waited for a volunteer to speak up, but no one did. Saburo paused and took a deep breath. That was when it happened. The spellcaster must have been watching because he knew that there was no one volunteering. The dead surged forward to attack, but then she volunteered. He began to choke up a little but continued somewhat. I couldn't stop her, she insisted. I could have. My wife. Naruto awkwardly patted his back when he couldn't say any more. He now understood the pain behind Saburo's family and the heavy burden he carried. So now she blames the mages who failed to take action and who could have saved her mother. Naruto guessed. And that was when you sent the letter. Saburo nodded. Now that Naruto thought about it, Alexa's behavior was understandable and expected. Saburo stood. I'll give you time to settle in. Dinner is in a few minutes. Saburo left the room and left Naruto to his thoughts. Is this how it was like for the other families in Lupinus, afraid of the horrors when evening came and wishing that the sun would never set? Naruto thought about that little girl and her mother earlier today. He thought about Lance and how happy he was acquiring Toby. There were still children who knew very little about the world. He closed his eyes, mind churning about the 3 wizards who caused all of this grief. He was in another place. He was lying on his chest with his hand stabbed into the ground by a black metal rod. A huge crater surrounded him. A man with orange hair and many piercings stood over him. He wore a black cloak with red cloud designs. Love is the reason why there is pain, he said. When we lose someone precious to us, hate is born. Vengeance is the product of that hate, and so death follows. But in death there is only more death. This will give rise to more pains. In this cursed world we live in is a cycle of hatred that will not cease. You and I seek the same thing that Jiraiya-sensei wanted. Let me ask you this, how will you confront this hatred in order to create peace? Naruto could not meet the man's eyes. He didn't know the answer to his question. It seemed like an impossible task to look for peace. But he couldn't give up because his teacher had left him the task to find the answer to bring about peace. When Naruto opened his eyes as he heard Saburo calling him for dinner, he still couldn't think of an answer. After dinner, Naruto headed upstairs to prepare his gear for his mission tonight. He was about to enter his room when he heard Toby barking in the other room with surprising insistently. Naruto opened the door to Lance's room to find it empty. Toby barked again and the sound came from the closet. Naruto approached and opened the closet, finding Lance and Toby inside. What are you guys doing in there? Lance looked down. Hiding. Hiding from what? Naruto asked. He crouched down to be level with the boy. I don't know. I'm just scared, Lance admitted. Naruto could understand why. Well, there's nothing wrong about that. But there are other ways to confront your fears, you know. Lance scrunched his eyebrows together. Like what? Well, you just did it. Admitting you're afraid. Naruto said. That's good because if you know what you're afraid of, then you can overcome that fear and become stronger. Really? Lance asked. Naruto grinned at him and ruffled his hair. Yep, and don't you forget it, Databeo. Lance grinned and walked away from the closet. Toby quickly followed. Naruto stood and went to his room to prepare the things he might need for tonight because he had a feeling that it would be a long one. Naruto stood among the citizens of Lupinus as they assembled in the town square. Families clung towards one another. The silence was heavy. He could practically hear the people's heartbeats and breaths. They waited for the inevitable. Saburo, who stood next to Naruto, wrapped his arms around his 2 children. Lance looked up at Naruto and the blonde gave him a reassuring smile. The boy tried to smile back but failed. Naruto did have a plan. If it worked, then he might just be able to end this tonight. Of course, he should consider the fact that he knew almost nothing about his enemies except for the one who controls the undead. The other 2 could be even more dangerous. He hoped that his strength was enough because if he failed, Naruto didn't want to think about what would happen. He heard a twig snap in the forest. Rustling leaves and sounds of bodies approaching could be heard. The crowd tensed as the first body could be seen followed by 2 more. Gradually, more zombies could be seen approaching the square, moving robotically and sluggish. In a few minutes they were surrounded by at least 200 of the undead. The zombies just stood there waiting. Naruto could see the multiple ways the undead have been killed. Some died by being stabbed, slit, beaten, and broken necks. Their decayed state ranged from dry bones to fresh kills. That sickened Naruto the most. Heads of the people swiveled from side to side in anticipation. They were scared to death. They were waiting someone to volunteer but they didn't want to. They didn't want to lose another family member or friend. None of them wanted to be escorted into the woods where they know they will never come back. They just wanted this horrible nightmare to end. A hand shot up from the crowd and a voice shouted, "I'll go." The people turned to look at the speaker. What they saw was a young blonde man moving through the crowd to face the zombies. They made way for him as he strode forward confidently. The citizens didn't understand one thing. The man was undoubtedly marching toward his death, so why was he smirking? Naruto dashed silently among the trees as he followed the herd of undead corpses moving through the forest. So far, everything was going according to plan. The zombies took the bait as his clone was the one being escorted among their ranks. Naruto tried to keep a fair amount of distance from the mass of corpses to avoid being detected, but far enough to keep them in sight. His shadow clone walked among the horde of undead as they continued to trudge toward their destination. Even from this distance, Naruto could see that his double was unbound. No restraints were applied on his clone, leaving him capable of free movement. His captors were either very arrogant or very confident in their abilities. Naruto knew there was a huge difference between the two. Naruto dashed to another tree and waited for a few moments before moving on to the next branch. The undead's pace was relentless but slow going. Naruto even noticed one of the bodies drop to the ground for no reason and lay still. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the scene. After about an hour of trekking, the procession came to a halt. The clone Naruto raised his eyebrows as he wondered if they reached their destination already. He didn't think so. They were still in the middle of the forest. The clone scanned his surroundings. He knew that the real Naruto was somewhere among the branches of the trees, following their progress. "Well done, my pets," a feminine voice rang out. Another successful sacrifice and another step closer to awakening Lord Zeref. A hooded figure stepped out behind one of the trees in front of them. She pulled down her hood and long pale white hair fell over the mage's shoulders. Her slightly slanted eyes and pinkish-colored skin were her most prominent features. She held her index finger to her smirking lips as she strode forward. He noticed that she was a head shorter than him when she drew near. The undead parted before her as she moved to get a closer look at Naruto. Also, she mentioned someone named Zeref. Naruto had heard that name before. He was the one who created the demon lullaby, an ancient dark wizard from some distant era in the past. Hearing her mention his name was troubling. A small smile graced her lips as she looked the blonde up and down. What do they call you, handsome? Naruto met her gaze evenly as his bright blue eyes met her deep brown ones. Ladies first. Her smile widened. Aren't you the gentleman? They call me Cynthia, she said, unable to resist the blonde's charm. Your turn. His clone hesitated a bit before answering. Naruto, Cynthia said, trying it out. What a strange name. She then turned her back to him and made her way to the front of the procession. That's enough small talk for now, let's move on. With a casual flick of her hand, she signaled the undead to proceed forward. The real Naruto observed the proceedings from his hidden location. Naruto noticed that while Cynthia was introducing herself to his clone, 2 more of the undead corpses she controlled flopped to the ground for no particular reason. A theory started to form in his mind about Cynthia's magic, but it wasn't much to go on. Still, he had to make use of whatever assets he has. Naruto then decided to track them with even greater caution. There was no telling if Cynthia could detect his presence or not. Better to be safe than sorry, he thought. After another hour of endless marching, the trees began to thin out and lessen as they emerged into a vast open grass field. Naruto cursed mentally as the cover that the trees provided began to decrease. He knew he couldn't get any closer to them without being seen. Unfortunately, he could barely see what was going on in the space in front of him. He would have to hang back for a little while until he was confident enough to make his move. Failure was not an option tonight. His clone also noticed this as they lead him toward the raised square platform on the open space. The structure was similar to that of a ziggurat, a step pyramid, only smaller. Made of some sort of marble like rock, smooth edges, Naruto could see that the top was led to by stairs on all 4 sides. 2 cloaked figures stood waiting at the base of the steps in front of them. They came to a halt just a few meters away from the 2. The 2 mages approached them and Cynthia signaled for the undead to make way for them. The corpses parted before the 3 mages as they approached Naruto. He observed the profile of his 2 new adversaries. All 3 of them bore the same silver-white hair. The one on the right hunched, making him look shorter than he really was. His hair was cut short and messy. What was the most bizarre thing about him were his eyes. His left eye had a yellow glowing quality to them, while his right iris was a bright green. Naruto turned his attention to the one in the middle. He was the tallest among the 3. His pale white hair was greasy and had a mop-like quality to it. He had a broad jaw and a tattoo on the left side of his face, a black crescent moon. He wore a strip of cloth that was tied around his forehead, like Naruto's head protector. Naruto didn't know why, but he had a bad feeling about him. They all stopped in front of him. The tallest mage scrutinized Naruto's copy. You're different. How so? Naruto asked, raising an eyebrow. The mage was studying him from head to toe. But you have to admit, Kentaro, Cynthia spoke, eyeing the blonde. He's gorgeous. The other mage with the mismatched eyes grunted. It doesn't matter. The ritual goes as planned. Cynthia pouted. Pity, we could have had so much fun together. There was an insane glint in her eye that made Naruto nervous. For some reason, Naruto could tell that they both had a different definition of fun. Kentaro studied him for a moment longer before turning his back to him. No, Neil is right. The ritual proceeds without question. Bring him. Cynthia was more than willing to wrap her arms around Naruto's as they started to make their way to the top of the ziggurat. She rested her head on Naruto's shoulder like they were a couple walking to dinner or something. Naruto did not like contact between them. Something was off about her. That went for her companions as well, Kentaro and Neil. If you don't mind me asking, Naruto said. What kind of ritual is this? Cynthia giggled as if it was a silly question. Oh, don't worry, you won't feel a thing. Besides, you don't need to know, you're not a mage after all. That was right. They thought he was a citizen of Lupinus. Well, they were in for quite a surprise later on. One other thing. You 3 are from a dark guild, aren't you? Naruto's tone was accusing and menacing. The 3 wizards were slightly caught off guard for a second. Kentaro looked over his shoulder to see 2 pale blue eyes glaring at him. Something about this man was unnerving. He could see it in the blonde's eyes. Naruto had pieced it together when Cynthia mentioned Zeref. He had only encountered one so far, and that was Eisenwald. Now he was certain about what he was up against, dark wizards who might be more powerful than Erza. At least you're not as dumb as you look, Neil commented. He on the other hand didn't give any thought about Naruto. He was just another random citizen to be slaughtered for the cause. If that was the case, then why was Kentaro observing the blonde with a sense of uncertainty? Naruto shook his arm free of Cynthia's grip and the girl pouted. They continued to climb the flight of stairs leading to the top of the ziggurat. Naruto scanned his surroundings as he stepped onto the last stair. It was a very spacious area. A stone altar was positioned at the far opposite side. Runes were carved into the stone, forming a perfect circle in the middle. Naruto figured they must be ancient texts from a past era long before this one. Cynthia and Neil escorted Naruto onto the circle of runes while Kentaro approached the altar to retrieve something. When he turned, he held a gleaming long double-sided dagger about 12.5 inches. A red glowing crystal was placed at the pommel. Naruto felt a demonic presence linger over them, a hungering presence with an insatiable appetite for blood. At first he couldn't pinpoint the source, but then Naruto found it. It was coming from the dagger. Cynthia and Neil took their positions on either side of him and began to chant. The runes engraved on the floor around Naruto lit up in a dark red color. He could feel the dark and evil energies begin to flow around him. He had to escape, or at least take down one of them. Naruto rushed toward his left side toward Cynthia, hoping to tackle her. Maybe if he knocked one of them unconscious, then the spell or whatever they were doing would be disrupted somehow. Once he reached the edge of the rune circle, he hit an invisible barrier and stumbled backward. He couldn't get through. Naruto could see that Kentaro also joined in the chanting as he held the dagger with both hands above his head. The dark magical energies began to swirl around Naruto as the three began to chant faster. The seal shall be released by the blood of the unwilling, Kentaro recited, and a new era shall come forth. The herald of doom shall aid us in this endeavor. The death of innocence shall awaken him. Kentaro entered the circle of manic swirling energy and raised the dagger above his head, poised to strike Naruto down. The blonde stared at him, inhaled deeply, and waited for the fatal blow. He hung his head to hide the small smirk he had on his face. He wished he could have learned more about their abilities to give him an edge on the upcoming battle he knew was about to take place. There was nothing he could do about it now. Kentaro brought down the dagger into a killing arc. The moment the blade made contact with Naruto's head, instead of splitting his skull in two, Naruto disappeared in a puff of smoke. The three mages only had a moment to register the sudden turn of events before it started to rain shuriken on them. The moment Naruto felt his clone's memories rushing back to him, he had already thrown his two shuriken and flashed quick hand signs. Multiple shadow shuriken jutsu. Hundreds of copies of the shuriken appeared and began to rain down on the group of dark wizards and the undead. Naruto created a clone and it puffed into existence beside him on the branch. You know what to do. The clone nodded and Naruto began to dash along the right side of the open field. He threw two more shuriken and flashed the same jutsu. Hundreds of shuriken took down many of the remaining undead corpses. Naruto figured that the massive zombies was his biggest obstacle so far. If he didn't finish them at first, the sheer numbers could overwhelm him. Plus, he had another problem to deal with. Neil suddenly appeared before him and threw a punch at Naruto. He blocked it with his right hand and sent him a thrust kick in the gut. The mage flew back a couple of feet and regained his footing instantly. Naruto realized that Cynthia and Kentaro was already there, surrounding him in 3 different directions. They were fast. I knew something was different about you, Kentaro told him. So, the people of Lupinus have enlisted the help of a guild. I think when we are done here, maybe we should pay them a visit again to remind them of their place. Naruto took out a kunai. I guess I'll just have to stop you then. You're welcome to try, Kentaro chuckled. He spread his arms out wide, inviting him to attack. Naruto noticed that he was still carrying the sacrificial dagger in his hand. Although you won't get very far, it's worth a shot. Naruto decided to go for a diversionary tactic. He would have to defeat Neil first to get to Kentaro. He threw his kunai at Neil and summoned 2 shadow clones. The first clone held up his arms on either side of him and the other 2 ran up to him. Using the clone's arms as a springboard, the other 2 blondes shot up into the air. Neil, who was standing in front of Kentaro, dodged the kunai with ease. Naruto formed a Rasengan in his hand and his clone grabbed his other arm and launched Naruto into Neil. The mage was unprepared for the quick follow-up and would have taken a direct hit if a gigantic rock arm didn't suddenly grab Naruto out of the air. You didn't forget about me, did you? Cynthia said. Naruto was being held by a huge earth humanoid figure. He struggled against its tight grip around his torso and arms to no avail. Naruto noticed that it was made of hardened soil. Cynthia rode atop the creature's shoulder. Naruto glanced behind the big creature and saw a large portion of the field missing, like it had been dug up recently. Very recently, Naruto thought. He realized that the creature was formed only a few moments ago. You're a naughty boy, Cynthia scolded. I had to make a hasty reanimation spell after you destroyed my army of corpses. She sighed dramatically. Guess I'll just have to make you my own personal pet after you die. That will more than make it up to me. Naruto continued to struggle under the golem's grip. Give up, little mage, Kentaro's voice resonating loud across the field. Save your energy and strength. You cannot defeat us. Naruto was really starting to get annoyed. No way. One of his shadow clones on the ground was still active. The clone made some hand signs and substituted himself with the real one. The clone disappeared in the earth golem's grasp as it dispelled with a puff of white smoke. Once he could move again, Naruto created another shadow clone and they both charged at the creature. Naruto's clone formed a spiraling blue sphere in his hand and Naruto poured more chakra into it. The result was a huge blue sphere with a diameter of 5 feet. Odama Rasengan. The 2 blondes rammed the sphere into the golem's chest. The resulting explosion blew Cynthia away as Naruto obliterated the golem. Chunks of rocks and soil scattered. She landed on her back next to her companions. Bastard, Cynthia shouted at him. Her flirtatious was demeanor gone and was replaced by vehement anger. Naruto stood panting slightly after that last attack. Even with his enormous reserves, he should probably conserve most of his chakra for later. He couldn't afford to waste any on ineffective attacks, especially since Kentaro remained unscathed and the other 2 barely injured. Damn, a worthy effort, Kintaro admitted. Yet you still cannot hope to defeat us. Individually we are strong, together we are unstoppable. Never underestimate the power of the Dark Guild Tartaros. Naruto frowned upon hearing the name of their guild. Tartaros. Yes, we are part of one of the 3 most powerful dark guilds in existence, Kintaro proclaimed. The Grand Magic Council labels us the weakest among the Barum Alliance. Those fools will be proven wrong once we manage to succeed in our plans to come. They're so arrogant that they do not even know that they have traitors in their ranks. Naruto frowned at the mention of the council. They didn't exactly see eye to eye when Naruto was brought to a meeting with them. He wasn't very fond of them, especially Seagrain, but the thought of one of them being a dark wizard in disguise left a feeling of dread to pool inside his gut. The result would be catastrophic. He shook his head to free himself from his thoughts. He couldn't afford to get distracted by something that was out of his control for the present. He had to focus on the task at hand. Right now, that was stopping these mages. So you think killing innocent people will change your status with the council? Naruto demanded. What could you possibly gain from this? Kintaro grinned like a madman. You fail to see the bigger picture. We dedicated our lives to unsealing the keys to awaken Lord Zeref. When he rises to full power again, he will usher in a new world where magic users will thrive and those without it shall perish. A world where Lord Zeref and his followers shall reign supreme over the rest of the weak and pathetic wizards out there, including yourself. In the end, you and the rest of the world will feel the great might of the one magic. Naruto sighed. This thirst for power was what led to men's demise. He knew better than anyone how this desire can destroy a person. He lost his friend to the lures of power and revenge. When will it end? Wait, where did they come from? Well, setting aside the fact that you are completely insane, Naruto said, getting into a fighting stance. I'm pretty sure I'll still be kicking your asses. Kintaro chuckled darkly as he and his 2 companions readied themselves. Kill him, Kintaro ordered. Naruto charged and summoned 3 shadow clones. Neil rushed forward and Cynthia molded 3 human-size earth golems. Neil met Naruto's first clone with an elbow to the gut. The clone disappeared and another clone aimed a kick at the mage's head. Neil grabbed the leg in midair, pivoted, and tossed the clone over his shoulder. That was his fatal mistake. Turning back around he encountered the last clone that lunged toward him with a kunai. Neil grabbed the blonde's wrist and rammed his knee into the clone's abdomen, making him vanish in a puff of white smoke. Neil scanned the surroundings for the original Naruto only to see no one. He barely heard Cynthia's warning when something slammed into his shoulders from above. Before he blacked out from the pain, he caught a glimpse of the blonde man standing over him. What he did not understand was the look of sadness written on his enemy's face as he looked down at him. Naruto had figured out his weakness when Cynthia's first golem disrupted his assault on Neil. Neil had the ability to analyze and predict his opponent's next move. However, to do this, he needed a visual on his attacker, otherwise his ability was useless. For example, Neil turned his back on Naruto when he threw one of his shadow clones over his shoulder. It was only for a moment, but in fierce battles like this, every moment was crucial. Naruto crouched down and gently closed Neil's eyelids with his 2 fingers. He didn't revel in death or particularly wanted to kill. If he could, he would avoid killing his enemies, but sometimes it was what had to be done. A corpse lying in front of him might have been a dark wizard with evil intentions. The same goes for his 2 guild mates as well, but they were still people. Neil was a living person who had goals and dreams to accomplish no matter how sick and twisted. They probably had reasons for causing all of what happened to the Lupinous citizens. Naruto knew that he would have to see through their eyes, feel their pain and walk in their footsteps to truly understand them. Who knows, if he were born in their place, he would be just like them, fighting for a misguided idea of a dead wizard ruling over the world of mages. He sighed as he stood up to face his 2 other opponents, knowing that he probably had to end them as well. There was no reasoning with these people because they were set on their plans and it involved many people dying. He would just have to endure for the good of many, because he knew that even though he had lost his memories, he would be able to endure any hardships to come his way. That's who Naruto is. Cynthia and her 3 medium-sized golems advanced. The earth creatures were much more agile than the one before, he noticed. Naruto figured that it must be the decrease in size. They were much lighter and quicker. They managed to cover the distance between them in less than 5 seconds. He dodged a heavy overhead chop to the head from one golem and blocked a quick follow-up roundhouse kick with his right arm. Naruto failed to see a second golem launch a heavy punch directed at his face. The earthen fist connected and sent Naruto sailing through the air. Pain throbbed on the spot where the golem's punch hit him. He backflipped in midair and managed to land on his feet before he skidded to a halt. Cynthia gave a shouted command and the 3 golems rushed at Naruto once again. He was ready this time. He had begun to formulate a theory about Cynthia's magic, about how she can reanimate non-living objects such as dead bodies and soil. He wasn't entirely sure about it though. It was time to put it to the test. Alright you dirt bastards, let's see how fast you can really move. Naruto summoned one shadow clone and the 2 ran forward to meet the assault head-on. The first golem stretched both of its arms and ran forward to clothesline them. The 2 blondes dropped to their knees and slid under the creature's arms, Matrix style. Once the creature passed them, they instantly got back on their feet and continued to dash forward. The next golem decided to take down one of the 2 blondes hastily running toward it. The golem threw a punch to the Naruto on his left, knowing that it was the real one. Naruto saw it coming and placed a hand on the creature's fist. Using his forward momentum, Naruto somersaulted over the golem. When his feet touched the ground again, Naruto continued to run forward as if nothing happened. The last golem was too slow to react. Naruto and his clone had already passed it. When Naruto noticed this, he had confirmed what he knew about Cynthia's magic. Her reanimation spells require a great deal of mental focus from the controller. Naruto first saw evidence of this when he was tailing his clone in the forest. Among the trees, Naruto saw a few undead corpses lose any sign of movement and flop uselessly to the ground for no reason. Then, Naruto noted that Cynthia's huge earth golem had perfect mobility because her focus was solely on controlling one golem. Now, her mental focus was split into three. While not as difficult as controlling a herd of zombies, it was confusing nonetheless. Cynthia had figured out that the blonde had already noted the weakness in her magic. She frantically commanded her golems to turn back and shield her, but it was too late. Naruto's clone formed a bright blue sphere in his hand while sprinting toward her. The clone disappeared and Cynthia raised her arms in front of herself as Naruto drew near. Rasengan. Naruto gritted his teeth as the orb connected to the girl's chest. She gave a shout of agony as Naruto drove his sphere deeper into her chest. The attack sent her flying through the air and she slammed into the wall of the ziggurat. She fell forward and lay in a crumpling heap. She twitched and didn't move again. One left, Naruto thought bitterly. Kintaro was downright shocked and enraged. Both of his comrades have fallen at the hands of a second-rate wizard no less. He glared at the blonde who met his gaze with pity. How dare you? Kintaro demanded. Naruto stared at the ground and clenched his fists. I had to. Kintaro seethed with rage. Very well, I will avenge my companions and you will know true despair. Naruto saw Kintaro remove the cloth tied around his forehead, revealing a third human eye. The eye darted back and forth gruesomely, looking at everything hungrily as if it couldn't get enough of what it saw. With the eye revealed, Kintaro began to radiate a dark and sickly energy. Kintaro grinned evilly. I will teach you the meaning of death. Suddenly, Naruto was struck by a blast of pure dark energy. He gave a shout of surprise and pain before he landed on his back a few feet from where he had been standing. He groaned as he got unsteadily back on his feet. How did Kintaro do that? Naruto didn't even see him raise his arm. The dark mage was still in the exact same position with no indication that he even moved. Now that you have had a taste of agony, I think I will destroy you now. Naruto summoned 4 shadow clones and together, they rushed at Kintaro. They never got close, because as soon as they ran a few steps they were blasted by that same dark energy from before. Only this time, Naruto knew how Kintaro did it. Kintaro's third eye was the source of the vile energy. Naruto noticed something else. Kintaro was already exhausted. He tried to hide it with his bluff, but there was no mistaking it. Beads of sweat already dotted his forehead. His ragged intake of breath and slight trembling indicates the toll his body has already taken. It must be taking all of his strength just to keep himself standing. Naruto narrowed his eyes and readied himself. He slipped something from his pouch and held it tightly. He would get only one chance to get this right. Naruto then began to dash forward once more, this time zigzagging every few steps to keep Kintaro from easily tracking his movements. Kintaro tried, but even his eyes couldn't match the blonde's speed. He moved in a blur, crisscrossing his path toward him. Kintaro did not want to shoot a blast where he might miss his target. Naruto was too fast. He could only describe it as a yellow flash. Naruto eventually reached his desired distance. He threw the small object in his hand on the ground and it exploded in a cover of smoke. Kintaro cursed as he lost sight of his enemy in the midst of the smoke. He gathered magical energy in his third eye, ready to blast him the moment he emerges from the smoke. He could only muster enough of his remaining energy for one more blast. He had to make it count. Suddenly, a dozen shuriken flew through the smoke toward him. Kintaro managed to dodge most of it except for 2. The steel-throwing stars embedded themselves in his right thigh and left arm. He ignored the stabbing pain and kept his attention in front of him. Then, Naruto burst from the smoke, holding a blue sphere in his hand, ready to strike him down. Kintaro unleashed the pent-up energy and blasted the blonde in front of him. To his surprise, the blonde in front of him burst into smoke as soon as his attack landed. An instant later, another rushed forward holding a similar blue sphere in his hand. The realization of what had transpired struck him with fear. He was going to die. In a futile attempt to defend himself, Kintaro raised his arm in front of him. The hand holding the dagger was outstretched ahead of him. Naruto, on the other hand, did not expect the sudden movement and accidentally hit the dagger instead of Kintaro. Shit, he exclaimed as the blue sphere slammed into the dagger's pommel. The red jewel attached to the dagger cracked and leaked demonic red energy. Another crack appeared and another until it shattered completely. What happened next caught both Kintaro and Naruto unprepared. The dagger exploded. Like carbonation behind a cork, a torrent of wild and tamed dark magical energy burst from the red gemstone. The explosion was so powerful that the next sensation that Naruto felt was being weightless. He could hear a faint cry of agony from the other mage, but he seemed to be far away. His right arm was flaring with pain, but he was so lightheaded that he couldn't even feel it, much less care at the moment. He began to fall through the air, heading toward the ground like a meteor. This is going to hurt, he thought before he eventually lost consciousness. What in the... At the voice, Naruto's eyes opened to see the tunnels of a flooded, dimly lit, boiler room-like sewer. Looking around at the place, what bothered Naruto was the fact that finding himself here didn't bother him at all, and in fact felt like somewhere he'd been before. Looking at who was speaking, blue eyes met with the sight of a young man. He wore a high-collared, black and tan robe with gold trim, along with a large, flowing white toga draped around his torso. Had short black hair, dark eyes, and also wore a pendant. Naruto blinked. Who are you and how did you get here? The young man shrugged. Honestly, no idea how I got here. I was sleeping and suddenly found myself here with you. Naruto frowned. That was troubling. Well, Naruto Uzumaki, the blonde said, trying to at least be friendly. The response he got was that the young man flinched away from him. What? Naruto asked. Sorry, under a curse. Makes it so that I can't exactly socialize. Naruto looked alarmed. Under a curse. Why didn't you say so? I'm part of Fairy Tail. Maybe my guild can help free you, then. Come on. We gotta get out of here for sure, now. A member of... The young man looked stunned, then slapped a hand to his face. Well, there's an irony. His tone made it seem like he almost wanted to laugh. Naruto frowned. Okay, what was this guy talking about? You at least got a name, stranger. That caused him to look at Naruto. Oh, right, my apologies. Been a long time since I've been able to speak with others, so... He stopped, blinking. From the state of your body, looks like you'll be leaving here soon enough, fairy. At that, Naruto looked down and was alarmed to see his body fading. What the? Naruto, was it? The blonde looked up to see who he was talking with. When you get back to your guild, give Mavis my regards, and I still remember that day in August fondly. The stranger said, looking like he was forcing himself not to smile. Naruto woke up on a soft mattress with a thin blanket covering him. Sunlight streamed through the nearby windows. He felt horrible. His whole body ached and his right arm was the worst of it because it was flaring up in pain. He realized that he lay bare-chested and bandaged, mostly around his arm and shoulder along with his forehead. Good, you're awake. A feminine voice spoke. He turned his head slowly as to decrease the nauseating dizziness he was starting to feel. An elderly woman with dark gray hair emerged from a spot in the room holding a tray of a steaming bowl of porridge and a glass of water. She set the tray down on a table next to the bed and helped him sit up. Are you able to eat on your own, or do you require assistance? She asked. I think I can manage, thank you. He croaked. His throat felt dry and hoarse. The woman placed the bowl on his lap and he ate. She sat on a chair next to the bed, watching him eat, which made Naruto slightly uncomfortable. The porridge was still hot and good. He swallowed every spoonful, grateful for something to fill his stomach. When he finished, the woman took the bowl and gave him the glass of water. Thank you, Naruto said after taking a few sips of water. He handed her the glass and she set it back on the tray. Now that he was fully awake and not as dizzy, he noticed that the woman looked vaguely familiar. What's your name, Bachan? You may call me Haruka, she responded. After a moment she smacked him on the back of his head and added, and I'm not that old. Naruto scratched his head sheepishly. Sorry, how are you feeling? She inquired. A bit sore and my arm hurting like hell, Naruto admitted. She nodded and once again he wondered where he might have seen her before. Do I know you? Haruka gave a small chuckle. I'm afraid not, my dear boy. I have been living alone for many years now and I have never met you until last night. Naruto frowned as he tried to recall the events of the previous hours. A new memory surfaced as he remembered most of the details. Before Naruto faced off with the Tartaros mages, he created another clone to act as a last resort if things came to worst. The clone hung back to observe the battle, ready to jump in when the situation required it. It turned out that the original had the advantage as the fight progressed. Then that was when the dagger exploded. The clone had been blasted backward himself despite the distance between the battle. Naruto hurried to track down his original self before he dispersed. He had been blown away to a farther part of the forest. He found himself in a crumpled heap in the ground after an hour of searching. Luckily, the clone spotted a small light source in the forest and dragged his unconscious self toward it. Haruka spotted them as soon as they entered her garden. She didn't hesitate when she saw that he was injured and immediately helped him into the house. The clone hastily related the events to the woman as she went about preparing the things she would need to treat his injuries. As soon as the clone felt that his original self was in good hands, he dispersed. From the clone's memories and from where he was lying in bed, Naruto realized that her house is a gigantic oak tree. The interior was an imperfect circle with a kitchen on one area, a shelf of books and different kinds of dried leaves and herbs on another, and finally the area where he was sitting in bed. It was not small but not that large either. You must have been put through the ringer, Haruka noted as she began to feel his temperature by placing her hand on his forehead. It was then that she frowned. What's wrong? Naruto asked. Strange, Haruka muttered. My boy, you have been infected by a very dark and potent magical energy. It is not my first time encountering this, as I have been a healer all of my life and treating magical ailments is what I do best, but by this time the foreign magical energy has already entered your veins and should be circulating through your entire body. Strangely, something is suppressing it. Within the recesses of his mind, Naruto heard a somewhat amused chuckle. I kind of have really strong immune system and I heal fast, Naruto told her. Haruka raised her eyebrows skeptically, not sure if the boy was telling the truth or simply boasting. Well, your quick healing abilities aside, it won't be enough to expel the poison completely. It will eventually spread and cause a complete organ failure if it is not treated immediately. Naruto gulped. Is there something you can do about it? Haruka smiled. Like I said before, I'm an expert when it comes to healing magical ailments. Naruto let out a relieved sigh. But be warned, the process will be extremely painful. It was his turn to grin. I've experienced worse, Ba-chan. Oh, and the name's Naruto, by the way. He extended his good arm and she shook it. She stood from the chair and collected the tray before she got a tick mark on her forehead. She slapped the blonde across the cheek. I told you to stop calling me that. I'm not that old. Naruto rubbed his throbbing cheek. Ouch. Meanwhile, back in Lupanus, Alexa was doing the early morning laundry. She hung her family's clothes on the clothesline by their backyard to dry. She couldn't help but smile a little when she saw her younger brother Lance chase their dog Toby around the house. A sudden wave of sadness washed over her as she heard Lance shouting for Toby to sit still so he could give him a proper bath. If only their mother was still here, she thought. It has been 7 months since she died and Alexa still couldn't accept the fact that she was gone. She replayed that horrible night when they took her mother away from her. Mom, please, don't go, someone else could volunteer, she said as she gripped her mother desperately. Lance was crying and he too clung to their mother, willing her to stay. Their mother pulled both of them into a deep hug. Tears streamed down Alexa's face as she wrapped her arms around her mother tightly, not wanting to let go. She's right, honey, I should go instead, Seburo said, trying to convince his wife. You stay here and watch over the kids. Her mother pulled away from her children's embrace and wrapped her arms around her husband. After a moment she pulled away and held each other at arm's length. You can't go. You're the town's leader and it's your job to protect these people. She put on a brave smile. Take care of our children. Goodbye, my darling. She broke apart from her husband's grasp and turned to face Alexa. The girl fell into her mother's open arms and sobbed. Why did she have to go? Couldn't someone else take her place? Her mother lifted her chin to face her. Using her fingers, her mother wiped away Alexa's tears. I need you to be strong now. I wish I could spend more time with you and watch you mature into the fine young woman I know you'll become. Watch over your brother for me. Alexa could do nothing except nod. Her mother pulled both Lance and her into another embrace. I love you both, always and forever. And now, 7 months later, there were still so many things Alexa was not able to say. She began to feel resentful and spiteful to those no-good mages. Where were they when they needed them most? After 7 months and then they finally show up. She knew it was already too late. Her mother was gone. What could Naruto possibly do to change things as they were now? Yet despite all this, a small inkling of doubt resided in her mind. She couldn't explain it. Last night, during the choosing, the blonde willingly volunteered and put on the same confident smile her mother wore. He hasn't returned yet, so she speculated that he already met the same fate her mother had. But she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something different about the blonde. Naruto had his arm clamped on the table as Haruka prepared all of the essential antidotes needed to inject into him. Now that his right arm wasn't covered in bandages anymore, he could see the sickening effects of the poison. His skin took on a pale green color, while his veins protruded and colored purple. On another table, Haruka carefully coated several needles in a herbal mixture that he knew was the antidote. She explained that they would have to pierce him in several veins to apply the antidote. She had his arm strapped to the table, saying that patients have a tendency to involuntarily jerk in pain. Haruka held the first needle and pressed down on his arm with her other hand to hold him steady. Naruto nodded and she plunged the needle into his forearm. It was a good thing that his arm was strapped on the table because it flared in agony. Naruto grit his teeth and gave a grunt of pain as another needle pierced him. This was insane. A needle shouldn't be able to cause this much pain, but then again it was probably the effects of the poison negating the antidote. He willed himself to stay put as Haruka proceeded to apply 30 more needles. Finally, after 30 minutes of torture, the treatment was finished. He had to admit, the antidote was working quite nicely. The pain in his arm has already subsided and a little bit of color was returning. He let out a contented sigh as the antidote had the desired effect. There, now that that's over with, we just have to wait for the antidote to do its job, Haruka said as she started to go about and clean up the utensils she used. Bet you love that, Naruto mumbled. Hearing this, Haruka smirked. That's what you get for calling me Ba-chan all the time. I'm barely 52. Well, how was I supposed to know that? Naruto said defensively. He was currently sitting in a chair with his arm still strapped on the table. He was told to stay put for a while for the medicine to work. The needles were still inserted into his arm, making it look like a pin cushion. While Haruka began to set aside her remaining ingredients, he thought about something she told him earlier. Hey Haruka-san, can I ask you something? Naruto said hesitantly. Go ahead. Naruto took in a deep breath. You deal with magical ailments. Haruka nodded, not seeing where this was headed. Is it possible that you have a cure for memory loss? Naruto asked. Haruka frowned in thought. Truth be told, she did have a potion that could cure amnesia and lost memories, but something held her back. It wasn't the first time that she'd been duped. She had been taken advantage of many times before because of her skill in healing. People with fake smiles and false words made her abandon her old town. She never openly trusted anyone since she left. Instead, she chose to live in the seclusion of the forest. Now looking at the young man in front of her gave her second thoughts. He had an honest face and from what she could tell a good character. What really caught her attention were his eyes. They not only showed confusion and sadness, but also pain. She hated herself for it, but she said, "I'm sorry, Naruto, but I cannot help you with that." Naruto hung his head and clenched his fist. He knew it was too good to be true. Of course things were not that simple, nothing ever is. Despite all this, Naruto looked up and smiled. "Well, I guess I just have to keep looking, don't I?" he said. "I mean, if I give up now, then I'll never succeed." Haruka saw a newfound determination in the boy's eyes that surprised her. Instead of wallowing in doubts, he chooses to smile and move forward. She had never met anyone with this kind of resolve. Maybe, just maybe, she thought. Later that evening, Alexa's father held an emergency town meeting in the square. Saburo has been growing anxious since the previous evening. Naruto had yet to return, and they still don't know if he succeeded in his endeavor to defeat the three wizards. The townspeople grew restless as they gathered in the center of town, the lingering fear of undead corpses showing up still present in their minds. Saburo stood on a raised wooden platform in front of the small crowd. Alexa could hear him trying to get the attention of the people as he thought of something to say. Lance stood next to her, holding Toby, who was also looking nervous. "Please, everyone just calm down." Saburo spoke to the assembly. The murmuring voices subsided somewhat and they all turned towards Saburo. "I know that we are all on edge lately and for good reasons. I only ask of you to hold on just a little longer while we wait for Naruto-san to. He's probably dead." A voice interrupted Saburo. "He hasn't returned since yesterday, so that means that the wizards overpowered him." The crowd began to murmur in agreement and Saburo tried to rein them in. "We don't know that yet." "Then where is he?" another speaker challenged. "If he wasn't defeated, then why hasn't he returned to report his victory?" Saburo gritted his teeth as he tried to think of a plausible comeback. He couldn't. They have presented possible scenarios that were not unlikely to happen. If Naruto had been defeated, then they were already condemned to death. No, he refused to believe that. "Please," he pleaded. "We just have to have faith in Naruto-san." Suddenly a loud and cold laughter boomed like thunder across the gathered members of Lupinus. They suddenly tensed as they felt an evil presence loom over them. Saburo paled and made his way over to his children, who were clinging to each other. Toby whimpered in Lance's arms. A demonic figure landed on the platform where Saburo stood only moments ago. People backed away as they sighted the monstrous form of the unknown creature. The creature was humanoid and was covered in dark reddish hide. The demon stood roughly 8 feet tall and had a pair of huge leathery bat wings on its back. Ram's horns sprouted on its forehead, and in between them was a human eye. The creature's long white hair reached its shoulders. The demon bared its fangs towards the gathered townspeople, which made them cower. "Pathetic humans," Kintaro spoke in a deep and cold voice. "Your faith will do you no good, as it is non-existent." "What do you mean?" a random person from the crowd asked. Kintaro gave an ugly grin. "Your mage is as good as dead, and in a few moments so will you." Everyone felt a cold shiver run down their spines as the meaning sunk in. "Naruto has failed." "Wait, I know you." Saburo pointed at the demon. "You're one of the 3 mages that attacked us." "I was, but not anymore," Kintaro responded. "Your troublesome wizard did not go down easily. He destroyed my 2 comrades and destroyed a most sacred artifact. However, I would have never been freed from the cursed seal from where I was locked away if it weren't for him." Kintaro released a wave of dark magic and it washed over the crowd in a gust of wind. "Now, I am free. My power is no longer contained and I shall bathe in the blood of thousands, starting with you." Kintaro roared and the people began to panic as they scrambled to get away from the demon. Kintaro spotted one person trying to get away and he thrust out one of his hands, releasing a bolt of dark energy. Luckily the attack missed and landed on the ground ahead of him. Even so, he was forced to run back or risk getting blasted again. "No one leaves," Kintaro stated, and left the people to huddle in fear. Alexa was so frightened that he didn't notice Lance slip away from her grasp and head towards the demon. Kintaro noticed the small boy standing in front of him, looking defiant while holding a small dog. He gave an amused chuckle as the boy glared at him while trembling with fear. "Pathetic." "Oh well," Kintaro thought. "I guess you shall be who I devour first." Naruto's eyes flashed awake and he sat bolt upright. He felt it. A strong dark magical energy was fluctuating wildly somewhere in the distance. He knew that energy. He fought against it only last night. "Haruka-san, I have to go," he said urgently as he got up from the bed. The woman herself was startled as he struggled to put on his black and orange jacket. "And where do you think you're headed at this time of the night? Your body has not fully healed yet, since it hasn't completely expelled the poison from your system. If you move too much, you might go into a relapse. Now go lie down." Haruka tried to get him back on the bed, but he refused to do so. "I have to go." "Where are you even headed and why?" Haruka asked exasperatedly. Naruto took a deep breath as he explained. "Back to Lupinus, because they are in trouble." "And how, may I ask, do you know this?" Naruto hesitated. "I can't explain it. Call it instinct, I guess, but that's not important. All I know is that they need me." Haruka sighed. "Still, you will not be able to do much for them as you are in no condition to fight." "I'll find a way," he said, completely ignoring her warning. Besides, Naruto tore away his newly applied bandages. Haruka was utterly shocked by what she saw. His infected arm was completely normal. Normally the antidote took days to expel the poison. Now here was this boy, who was only given treatment a few hours ago, was perfectly healthy. "I heal fast." Lance struggled to keep his knees from shaking too much as he faced the demon. He didn't know what propelled him into such an act of courage, but he knew that someone had to stand up to the creature. As for the demon, he just stood watching the boy, amused by his profound and pointless determination. Nevertheless, he spoke the next few words in utmost certainty. Lance was tired of having to live in fear every night. He was tired of people being taken away and never coming back, just like his mother. He remembered the words of the blonde mage spoken to him only yesterday. He was definitely scared, but, "What's the matter, boy?" Kintaro asked, so frightened that you can't stop shaking. Lance gritted his teeth. "I am afraid, but not of you." The crowd gasped and the demon looked slightly annoyed by that statement. "Well then," Kintaro raised his hand that cackled with dark energy and pointed it towards Lance. "I'll have to make you fear me." That was the last straw. Alexa rushed forward and placed herself in front of her brother. She was not going to lose another family member. She promised her mother that she would look out for Lance and she was going to keep that vow. She stood firmly in place with her arms outstretched as she waited for the blast. "Lance, Alexa," her father shouted. She closed her eyes, waiting for the end. Suddenly, she felt herself being picked up and carried away as she heard an explosion only a moment later. She opened her eyes only to find herself in the arms of a handsome young man with blonde hair and bright blue eyes. Naruto gave her a confident smile as he set her down gently on the ground. Alexa turned to find another Naruto do the same and placed Lance and Toby next to her. She immediately rushed over and wrapped her arms around her brother. Only moments ago, she was prepared to die to save her brother, and now here they were, safe and unharmed. Seburo reached them and embraced both of his children. "Oh, thank goodness," Seburo said. He looked to the man who had just saved his two kids. "Thank you, Naruto." The blonde man just nodded and focused his attention to the snarling demon on the platform. "So, you survived," Kintaro said in disgust. "I should have known you were still alive. How bothersome. People say I'm pretty stubborn sometimes," Naruto said. He settled into a fighting stance. "But I'll take that as a compliment. Let's end this then, shall we?" Kintaro spread his massive wings and shot into the air. Naruto never took his eyes off the now transformed mage as he circled around the air. "Seburo, get everyone to safety," Naruto told the man. "I can't fight if I'm constantly checking if everyone is okay." Seburo nodded. "Let's go, kids." "Wait," Alexa said as she turned to look back at the blonde. "Will you be all right?" Naruto gave her a confident smile. "Don't worry about me. I can handle myself." With that being said, Naruto turned his attention back to the demon circling overhead. Alexa followed her father as he led the people away from the square. All the while she never took her eyes off of the man who saved her. She never lost sight of him until they rounded a corner and the structure of a house obscured her view. Naruto waited until the townspeople were distanced far from the area, and once he was satisfied that they were far from the soon-to-be battlefield, he created two shadow clones. He knew that this was going to be much more difficult than his previous battle with the transformed mage. The dark magical energies from the dagger must have turned him into this demon. Not to mention that Haruka-san was right. He wasn't fully healed yet. He could still feel traces of the same evil energy flowing through his bloodstream. It was too late to change his mind now. Naruto formed a glowing blue sphere in his hand and the two clones gripped his arms. Taking a few steps back, they took off with a running start and the clones tossed Naruto into the air. Naruto sailed toward Kintaro, ready to ram his palm into the demon's face. Kintaro, on the other hand, was simply waiting for the blonde to make his move. When he saw him shooting into the air to intercept him, Kintaro made no move to dodge the attack. Instead, he decided to face the blonde head-on. Naruto could see Kintaro flying toward him. When he was within striking distance, Naruto thrust his glowing blue sphere toward the demon. He would have taken a direct hit, but Kintaro was unimaginably fast. Kintaro grabbed his wrist and drove his fist into Naruto's gut. Not only was he faster, he was stronger too. The punch made Naruto cough up spits of blood. With his concentration broken, the racing gun vanished. Kintaro held tightly him by his throat. He struggled in the demon's grip but to no avail. It was becoming difficult to breathe. "What a waste of effort," Kintaro taunted. "Thanks to you, I have gained more power than I could have ever imagined. Sadly, now you are going to pay for what you did to my guild members." Kintaro flew upwards and rapidly gained altitude. Then, when he reached the desirable height, he began to plunge toward the ground. He held Naruto by the throat and positioned him below him so that he would impact the ground first. Naruto couldn't do a thing. It dawned on him what was going to happen, a very hard fall. He tried to think of a way out of this when he had a sudden idea. He retreated into his psyche and stood in front of the powerful gigantic fox. Ibiju looked curiously at the blonde. "In trouble again, Naruto?" The Kyuubi demanded. "Lend me some power," Naruto said. "I need to defeat this man." The Kyuubi pondered on this for a moment. "Very well, but as strange as it is telling you this, curse your memory loss, my chakra's pretty volatile." "So be it." Kintaro slammed the blonde into the pavement and the impact was so powerful that it created a small crater. Kintaro released his hold on Naruto and left him in a crumpled heap. Kintaro could see the broken form of his enemy and he smiled. He had his revenge. Now he would kill the rest of the pathetic citizens of this town. He turned to leave, but something stopped him. Kintaro felt a spike of demonic energy besides his own, another presence that was full of rage and anger. He looked back to see that Naruto was slowly rising from the rubble. The blonde looked possessed. Naruto got back on his feet and a coat of bubbling orange chakra started to form around his whole body. The strange coating took the form of a fox with 3 tails gently swaying from side to side. The blonde's physical features also morphed into a demon fox as his teeth became fangs and his nails turned into claws. Naruto opened his eyes to reveal blood-red irises with feral slits. Kintaro could not do anything but watch in fear as he felt waves of rage and power wash over the entire area. "What are you?" Kintaro demanded. Instead of answering, Naruto let loose a loud roar that sent powerful gusts of wind in every direction. Kintaro stood gaping at the demonic creature before him, able to feel the immense power and hatred emanating from it in waves. Despite being a newly transformed demon himself, he felt a small amount of fear. It was ridiculous. He was far more powerful than he was before, and yet the demon fox in front of him made his powers look insignificant. Naruto crouched on all fours and growled at Kintaro. His 3 tails were swaying slightly from side to side. The fox's hate-filled eyes trained on him. Suddenly, before he could even blink, Naruto appeared in front of him and delivered a powerful punch in his face. The next thing he knew was that he was smashing through buildings and then trees before skidding to a halt. The mage looked up to see that the town of Lupinus was now a faint outline in the distance. The blonde was that powerful. Then, he saw the demon fox bounding toward him at unbelievable speeds. Kintaro was ready for him this time. He encased his fist in dark magic. Once Naruto was within striking distance, Kintaro launched himself at the blonde demon and slammed his magic-enveloped fist into his gut. He followed it up by opening his mouth wide and shouting, "Demonic roar!" A huge wave of dark magic shot from his mouth and blasted Naruto backward. Naruto slammed into a few trees before getting back up again on all fours and growled at Kintaro. He seemed unhurt and unaffected by the 2 attacks. He only looked angrier. "Interesting. Who would have thought that you held such evil inside of you?" Kintaro said. "How does it feel to have all of that power inside of you? I can feel your rage and hatred. Why fight it? Why not show your true self? After all, this is who you really are." Naruto didn't respond. He kept his feral eyes trained on the other demon in case he made a move. His claws were digging into the ground and his whole body was tense. "You know, I should be thanking you," Kintaro continued. He needed to stall for a bit to gather his energy. "If you hadn't broken the dagger, I would have never attained this power. We always thought that the Devourer of Souls was sealed away in the ziggurat itself. We never imagined that the demon was sealed inside the dagger all along. Now, thanks to you, I have been granted with the demon's powers, and you shall be the first to taste it." As quick as a cobra, Kintaro thrust out both of his hands and a gigantic beam of dark magic shot toward Naruto. Death Cannon. Naruto was hit with the full extent of the attack. He was blasted backwards and landed a few meters away. Even with the Kyuubi's chakra cloaking him, a small portion of the attack managed to pierce through it and hit his left shoulder. Pain shot through his entire left arm and now it hung limp at his side. Naruto got back on his feet and bared his fangs at Kintaro. "You still want more? Very well." Kintaro shot up into the air and hovered a few meters above the ground. He raised his right arm above his head and gathered an immense amount of magic. Kintaro thrust out his hand in front of him and a dark magic circle appeared. Hellbringer. A dozen beams of dark energy shot toward Naruto. The blonde Jinchuriki saw them coming and dashed toward his right to avoid them. Unfortunately, the beams seemed to be following him. Kintaro let out an evil chuckle. "I'm afraid that's not going to work." Naruto managed to evade one of the beams from hitting him. Instead, it struck the ground and created a huge crater. Naruto ran on all fours and zigzagged, hoping to confuse the homing attack. He managed to avoid another 2, but one of them hit him square in the back, making him falter. Then the remaining shots managed to close in on him and find their mark. There was a huge explosion that followed and Kintaro landed on the ground. A large cloud of dust obscured his view. When it cleared, a massive crater had formed and in the middle was the crumpled fox. Naruto lay broken and battered in the center of the hole. Kintaro smirked and decided to take a close look. That was a big mistake. When he got closer, Kintaro stopped as he heard a crunching and cracking sound. He then realized that it was coming from Naruto. Thanks to the fox's chakra, his injuries were healing at an alarming rate. His broken bones mended, his cuts closed, and his bruises faded. Naruto slowly got back on all fours and he glared at Kintaro. The demonic mage couldn't believe his eyes. "How are you still alive? What is this power?" Naruto roared and a huge blast of wind erupted from him. The gusts were so powerful that it made Kintaro stagger backward. Suddenly, Naruto stretched out his hand and a long orange claw grabbed Kintaro. The massive hand wrapped around Kintaro's torso and wings. The blonde Jinchuriki raised his hand high in the air and then brought it back down. The hand holding Kintaro followed his movements and the demon mage was hoisted high into the air before slamming back down headfirst into the ground. The impact stunned him for a moment before he was tossed into the air again and brought back forcefully into the ground. Then, before he could get back on his feet or even sit up, Naruto leaped on top of Kintaro's chest, pinning him to the ground. Naruto cocked his hand back and unleashed a barrage of powerful swipes at Kintaro. With each blow, they both sunk deeper and deeper into the ground. After 10 minutes of non-stop pounding, Naruto backed away. Kintaro was now unrecognizable. His face and body was broken and deformed. His wings were snapped like a twig and now bent in odd angles. He now lay unmoving. "This isn't over," Kintaro managed to choke out. "My guild is far more powerful than you can imagine." Kentaro then somehow managed to move and was trying to get up. Naruto wasn't going to let him though. He formed a glowing blue sphere in his right hand and it was fueled by the Kyuubi's chakra. Vermilion Rasengan. Naruto slammed the orb into Kentaro's chest and the demon mage gave a grunt of pain before he felt nothing else and lay still. The blonde Jinchuriki stepped back from the corpse. He reared his head back and gave a loud roar of triumph. Meanwhile, the townspeople of Lupinus gathered at the edge of the forest as they waited for the battle to end. They heard massive explosions and shouts coming from the town before they were met with silence. It has been quiet for over an hour and they were getting anxious. Alexa stood next to her father while holding on to her brother. Is it over? Seburo frowned for a moment. Honestly, I cannot say. Don't worry, Naruto-san will win. We just have to have faith, Lance said. Toby barked in agreement. Alexa was silent for a moment. I hope you're right. Then suddenly, a twig snapped and somewhere behind them. The citizens tensed and some of the capable men held their makeshift weapons at the ready. Seburo stepped in front of his children and Alexa clung to her little brother tightly. It could be the demon from the town square ready to destroy them. After a few moments, a man stumbled out of the tree line looking confused and disoriented. The crowd let out a gasp of surprise. They knew him. He was once a merchant that sold fresh fruits in the market square. Papa, a young girl squealed and ran toward the man. The little girl was followed by her mother who looked like she was seeing a ghost. The man looked startled and disoriented as his daughter tackled him with a hug and cried. His wife also wrapped her arms around him in a tight embrace. He blinked the confusion out of his eyes and returned the hug. He pulled his family even closer to himself as his wife and daughter sobbed in relief. Then, more people began emerging from the woods, looking just as confused. They were all greeted in open arms as each of their loved ones ran over to the person they thought was dead. Among the crowd of people, Alexa spotted the one person who she thought was gone forever. Her mother, Cassandra, stumbled out of the woods with a disoriented look on her face as she tried to make sense of her surroundings. Alexa ran toward her mother with her father and brother following closely behind her. Alexa wrapped her arms tightly around her mother's neck and sobbed. She couldn't believe it. Her mother was back in her arms and she never wanted to let go of her again. Not only her, but it looked like everyone that had been used as sacrifices were also returned from the dead. For the moment, she didn't care as long as they were together again. Seburo also wrapped his arms around his wife and daughter, while Lance clung to her mother's waist. The small family basked in each other's presence and warmth. None of them could stop the tears from flowing. We've missed you so much, Alexa said softly. At this point, Cassandra lost her momentary confusion and smiled as she returned her family's tight embrace. SHHH, it's okay now, her mother said soothing words to all of them. It was a long time before all of them separated from their family hug. Darling, I'm so glad that you're back, but I have to ask. How? Seburo wasn't complaining. He had never been more overjoyed in his entire life to have his wife back and have his family whole again. Still, curiosity got the better of him and he had to know how this came to be. His wife cast him an apologetic smile. I'm sorry, darling, but I honestly don't know. I am still wondering about that myself. In fact, all of the now brought-to-life citizens didn't know either. They all just found themselves stumbling through the woods. Perhaps I can shed some light on that. A new voice spoke up. Seburo turned to the speaker and his eyes widened as he recognized the woman walking towards them from the woods. Haruka, is that you? The old woman smiled. It's been a long time, brother. Now, allow me to explain. Naruto has a new problem. The magical poison that he got from his previous encounter with the Tartados mages was still running through his system. It was causing the Kyuubi's chakra to become more potent. He couldn't seem to rein himself under control as he began smashing trees for no reason. Now that he didn't have an enemy to focus all of his rage, he wanted to destroy everything he saw. At some point after the battle, Kentaro's corpse began to release a huge amount of strange energy. Ghostly humanoid figures erupted from the dead body of the demon and disappeared. Whatever it was seems to have been the source of his new power and demonic form. Now that it was gone, the mage was reverted back to his human form. It was all he noticed while he was starting to lose control. Naruto swiped at another tree and broke it in half. His bloodlust felt unquenchable as he destroyed several more trees. If he couldn't stop the flow of the Kyuubi's chakra, he could destroy everything within a 3-mile radius. He willed his chakra to stop flowing, but the poison was interfering and he can't cease the flow of his chakra. Naruto started to panic a little bit as he was heading toward the direction of Lupinus. The last thing he wanted was to hurt and endanger innocent people. His desperation was growing by the minute as he frantically tried to stop himself. Nothing was happening. Determination alone wasn't enough. Now what? He couldn't contact the Kyuubi to see if he could help him stop the flow of chakra. Naruto was slowly moving forward as he struck down anything in his path, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. He needed help. Anyone. I believe in you, Naruto. An image of a tall blonde man wearing a long white coat and flak jacket appeared in his mind. His light blue eyes stared at him and Naruto felt like he was looking in a mirror. If it weren't for his whisker marks, the man in front of him would look exactly like him. The man gave him an encouraging smile. It is the duty of a parent to have undying faith in their child. That's why I know you will find the answer someday. It was his father. More importantly, he believed in him. Naruto gave a long drawn-out shout as he began to exert a ton of effort to close his energy pathways. At first nothing happened, but after a few minutes, he felt one of his passageways close and then another. It was taking a huge toll on him, but he managed to close the last pathway and cease the flow of chakra in his system. The Kyuubi's chakra cloak disappeared along with the most of his strength and energy. He collapsed on the ground and panted heavily. He was completely exhausted. Naruto was lying face first on the forest floor and breathing heavily. He felt like he ran a marathon with 10-ton leg weights. After a few minutes, he groaned as he pushed himself off the ground and got himself braced on one knee. His muscles screamed in protest as he did so. Frankly, he was ready to hit the sack right now, but he had to get back to Lupinus and make sure that the people were okay. It took a huge effort to stand and an even greater challenge to just walk. It was slow going, because he had to stop and lean on a tree for support and rest. He returned the flow of his chakra and felt a little better. The poison was starting to lose effect and Naruto could feel it being expelled from his body. He thought about the man he just saw earlier. He had no doubt in his mind that the man he saw was his father. Naruto smiled as he turned his gaze skyward. Thanks, Dad. After a while, he began to see the outline of the town. He had been walking for half an hour now and he was glad that he finally made it back. He stumbled out of the forest and a huge surprise awaited him. There he is, a voice shouted among the masses as a huge gathering of people began making their way toward him. His eyes widened as the number ranged into hundreds. At last he checked, there were only a few citizens of Lupinus left. Where did all of these people come from? He was tackled in a hug and he realized that it was Alexa who had wrapped her arms around him. Soon he was surrounded by the mob and Lance came up to him and hugged his waist. Toby was barking happily while running around in circles. Thank you so much, Alexa said. Seburo stepped forward along with a woman that looked familiar. They held each other's hand and it dawned on him. The woman was his wife and Alexa's mother. The girl pulled away from the hug and turned to look at every single one of the faces of the people gathered around him. No way, you're all. Naruto trailed off. He couldn't believe that all of the people that had been sacrificed were alive and breathing. Seburo smiled at him. Naruto, we can't even begin to express our gratitude toward you as of this moment. You have no idea. Thanks to you, all of our loved ones have returned to us. We will always be forever grateful to you. Then, Seburo and his wife bowed deeply to the young man and after a few moments everyone else followed suit. The entire population bowed before him and to be honest, it was making him uncomfortable. Please don't do that, it was my job to help you anyway, Naruto said while scratching his head embarrassedly. He was never one for praise much. He was just fine with being acknowledged. Anyway, how are you all back? Naruto asked. Well, Haruka explained it to us, Seburo said. Wait, you know Haruka-san? Yes, she's my sister, Seburo answered. Naruto was slightly surprised by that piece of information. But when he thought about it, it made sense. No wonder she looked so familiar. Looking at the man in front of him right now and comparing it to the woman who healed his injuries in the forest, there was no doubt about their status as siblings. As I was saying, Seburo continued, my sister has always been an excellent healer and has traveled all around Fjord studying all she can about magic and medical practices. She was said to rival the talents of poor Yusuke from Fairy Tail. In her travels, she encountered reference to a demon known as the Devourer. This demon was said to claim souls and use it to fuel itself from their energies. The Devourer was a creation of Zeref, and I have no doubt in my mind that we encountered this very demon tonight. Naruto really did not like this Zeref person. He was glad that he died a long time ago. If his creations were demons like Lullaby and Devourer, he didn't want to know what other monstrosities he could whip up. The demon's powers come from the very souls he claims, so the more he takes the stronger he becomes. However, the souls he claims are very much alive, but they are trapped within the demon as long as it breathes. Haruka can only theorize that after defeating it, you release the ones trapped within the demon. Naruto sighed in relief. Does that mean everyone who died is back now? Seburo nodded. And it is all thanks to you. The blonde once again rubbed the back of his head. Seburo then clapped him on the back and chuckled heartily. Well, in light of the circumstances, I think this calls for a celebration. Come on, everyone, what do you say? The whole town cheered and began to head back into town with Naruto on top of their shoulders. The party lasted the whole night and it didn't stop until the next morning. Everyone was in great spirits as they celebrated their freedom and glad that this horrible nightmare was over. Everyone got to spend their evening reunited with the people they lost. They all gathered around the Tosen Square disregarding some of the damages for now and parted like there was no tomorrow. There was laughter, music, dancing, and good food. The citizens of Lupinus have never been happier as they could finally let go of the fear plaguing them every day. Naruto was the star of the evening as everybody wanted to talk to him. He was dragged to so many tables that he lost track of his dinner. They all wanted to thank him and talk with him for a bit to get to know their hero better. He would spend only 5 minutes on one table before being whisked away to another. At one point, Alexa dragged him onto the dance floor for a dance that required a partner. He apologized repeatedly as he kept stepping on her feet and tripping over himself as he struggled to get in tune with the footwork and music. That afternoon, the party started to diffuse and it was time for Naruto to leave. Everybody came to see him off and they stood in front of the town. Here, take this. Seburo handed him a check. You've earned it. Naruto's eyes bulged as he saw the number of zeros on the check. The reward had been raised to a pay of 10 million jewels. Holy crap, that's a lot, Naruto exclaimed and Saburo chuckled. I did tell you that the job was raised to S-class, didn't I? Naruto slapped his forehead. That's right, I guess I forgot. Are you sure about this? I mean, I can settle for the previous reward. Saburo shook his head. Take it. It's the least we could offer you as you've done so much for us. Whatever happens, you are always welcome here. Naruto nodded. Alexa came forward. I'm sorry for how I acted when we met. She apologized. I was wrong about you, and I want to give you something for saving my mother and everyone else. Alexa then brought her lips close to his face and planted a kiss on his cheek. It was a small gesture, but it still left him blushing up a storm. She giggled when she pulled back and saw his face had a blush. Don't be a stranger, okay? She said. Naruto nodded with a grin. Lance came forward with Toby in his hands. He smiled up at his hero figure. When I grow up, I'm going to just like you so I can protect my family too, right, Toby? The dog barked in affirmation. Naruto smiled and ruffled the boy's hair. That's a good path to follow. Just don't give up no matter how hard life becomes and you'll be stronger than me someday. Really? You mean it? Lance asked. Naruto nodded. The blonde slung his rucksack over his shoulder and waved goodbye as he began to walk down the road. They all shouted their farewells and told him to come back soon. Naruto promised that he would someday and he never broke his promises. Naruto saw her after walking down the road for 30 minutes. She stood there like she was expecting him and he walked over to her. I was wrong about you, Naruto, Haruka said. You're different from other people. When a house catches on fire, most people would run to safety while people like you run back inside to see if anyone else was trapped. I wouldn't even think twice about it, Naruto told her. It's just who I am. Haruka smiled at him and took out a small vial of clear liquid from her pouch. She handed it to him. Here. Naruto stared at the small vial on his hand and couldn't help but wonder. Haruka-san, is this what I think it is? The elderly woman nodded. This is a potion that will help you regain your lost memories. It is a very rare brew and it is difficult to make. This is the only one I have and I've decided to entrust it to you. Naruto clutched the small potion like it was a lifeline. He couldn't believe it. All of his memories were in the palm of his hand. All he had to do now was drink it and... However, there is a catch. Haruka warned. The potion is set on a timer. It is not ready to be consumed at the moment. The effect of the potion will activate at any given moment and you must drink it immediately. The blonde frowned. How will I know when I can drink it? Trust me, you'll know, Haruka assured him. Even I cannot say when it will be ready to be consumed. That is why you must keep it on your person at all times and when it is ready, you only have 2 minutes to consume it before it becomes useless. Naruto nodded and carefully placed the vial in his pouch. Thank you, Haruka-san. I'm giving you a chance to do some good in this world. Haruka said. We need people like you. I just wish I can do more. Then, Naruto surprised her by giving the elderly woman a hug. He pulled away a moment later. You have no idea how much you've done for me. Thank you. Good luck, Naruto, and safe travels. Haruka called out as he began to walk down the road again. Naruto waved back. See you around, Ba-chan. Haruka grew several tick marks when she heard that. She picked up a small rock and threw it at the blonde. I'm not that old. The stone smacked Naruto at the back of his head with so much force that he stumbled for a bit before landing face first on the ground. Ouch. Okay, sadly the chapter is over. And if you enjoyed, just leave a like and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.